Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are live. It is Monday, December 26th, not December 26th, 22nd. We haven't even got through Christmas yet, but I am happy to be here. Thank you, everybody, for being here on the day. Hopefully, everyone had a good weekend. Cannot make the Sunday Future show last night. I was with my mom. It was her birthday, so we had a little bit of a get-together for my mom. But we are back, we are live, and we have got a lot to talk about. I did take a little bit of a peek at the futures last night, and well, it's green. And that futures sort of price action has continued into the pre-market, and we are getting some green today as well. Now, look, this is pretty much the setup that I think a lot of us have been looking for when it comes to the mythical Santa Claus rally. SoFi is up 1.5%, Rocket Lab up 4%, S&P 500 up 0.42%, Nebius, this thing got to $78 last Thursday. It's up 3.3%. D-Wave's up, Bloom Energy is up, the Qs are up, Google is up, Amazon is up, Broadcom, NVDA finally breaking up back above that 184 level. CoreWeave is up 3% after being up 20% on Friday. Iren, AMD, Applied Digital, Ondas. I mean, you're just getting a lot of names. Ethereum back above 3,000. Bitcoin as well back above 90,000. Well, it was back above 90,000. Now it's at 89.8. So, I mean, this is going to be a week where we have low volume. This is going to be a week where a lot of people, including fund managers and hedge funds, kind of take a break and don't trade because everyone's traveling. They're leaving for Christmas and the holidays. And this is also going to be a week where retail investors, quite frankly, don't participate as deeply in the markets because they're going to be gone for the holidays. So it's going to be very similar to that week leading up to Thanksgiving. And realistically, the Santa Claus rally happens on December 26th to January 2nd. But if we needed a foundation to kind of get some of that momentum, I think we're seeing it today. I think the number one question that we all should have, and I'll put this poll in the chat on red or green, is can we hold it, right? Because this has been the question every time we've had a pre-market pump. And this has been one of the better pre-market pumps we've had pretty much over the past 2 weeks. It's nice to see this, and it was nice to see this the last couple times it happened, but it didn't hold. So the question's going to be throughout the day, even with the low volumes, do we get to see it hold? Unfortunately, the bond market is not necessarily participating in the upside by having yields come down. In fact, yields are going up, so I guess it is participating in the upside, but not for the right reason. So we're not really seeing that 10-year, even after rates come down, start to come down, which is an issue. We've got some problems in Japan as well. Now that whole yen carry trade, I mean, we haven't really seen it playing out after they raise rates again back on Friday. But if you take a look at their 10-year, it's above 2% for the first time in a long time. So August 24, when we had the yen carry trade, it was at 0.882. And now overnight, it got to 2.091, which means people are selling off Japanese 10-year bonds dramatically, not really affecting the equity markets yet, not even affecting Bitcoin, quite frankly. Gold and silver are making new all-time highs, which is another massive component to this entire issue. Silver is just going crazy. That's up 3%. Gold as well, breaking its all-time high. So I think the broader question today is, can we hold it? And if we can hold it for the next couple of days, I think we kind of get that run into the Santa Claus rally. If it gets faded today, if big money comes in and just sells it off, it will once again be indicative of this problem we've been seeing over the past couple of days, which is that the momentum can't be sustained. My gut tells me we have a better shot of sustaining it than not, simply because of the seasonality that we are entering into as we get towards the end of the year. I mean, this, quite frankly, is the best time of the year for the stock market. So if things don't change as they've been historically, then I think we hold it. But in the next 30 minutes, we're going to see. And if we can, then it would be obviously very, very good going into the end of the year. So we got a lot to talk about, a lot to get into. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hopefully, everyone had a great weekend. I did get the beard trimmed a little bit. I think this is the appropriate size for it, because if it gets too big, it just gets messy. But if it's gone, then I don't know. I like the way it defines my face, but definitely was getting a little too aggressive last week. So trimmed up the beard. Oh, that's why we're green. I did all that analysis for the past 5 minutes for no freaking reason. Yeah, that's why. You guys were telling me to freaking trim it. There you go. You got the beard trimmed and markets are up. It is. We'll keep it at this size every week. We'll keep it at this. You know what I'm trying to learn how to do it myself. It's been freaking 10 years. I should know how to trim my own beard, but I don't trust myself ever. But like that should be a goal in 2026, like actually learning how to just look in the mirror and trim my own freaking beard so I don't have to pay freaking $25 every time to do it. That would be a good idea. All right, so let's get into it. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. Let's start with some NVIDIA headlines. NVIDIA, once again, is selling into China. 2 weeks ago, NVIDIA got the okay from the United States to start selling into China, even if they had to give out 25% of their revenue on their H200 chips. This morning, you got Bloomberg reporting NVIDIA reportedly is planning to send the first H200 AI chips to China before mid-February, with initial shipments expected to be 40,000 to 80,000 units. Bullish, right? Like a lot of us were thinking NVIDIA is going to sell to China, but we didn't have official confirmation. Now you're starting to see that NVIDIA is getting ready to ship those chips into China, which is going to be a certain amount of revenue for them. Even if it's not going to be life-changing revenue for the company, it will help them beat on earnings estimates. Jensen, I think I'm pretty confident, I think all of us are pretty confident that he's going to beat regardless of China. But just having this as the additional upside continues to underwrite why this stock trading at this time 27 times earnings is probably a decent deal. So you're having that momentum for NVIDIA, and that probably is helping all the other chips. AMD likely is going to follow. AMD with their MI450. I think they're going to be able to sell either the MI350 or the chip before that. AMD is up 2% in the pre-markets, as they also will get access to China. And that's going to be a good thing for a lot of the chip companies and that entire chip ecosystem. Also holding up. Amid why are yields staying up bad doesn't mean people selling bonds to buy equities. It doesn't necessarily mean they're selling bonds to buy equities. It could mean that they're selling bonds to buy equities. What it more, I think, importantly signifies is that people don't trust the credit markets, right? If you're not happy staying in Japanese 10-year bonds or United States 10-year bonds, even after the United States has decided to lower rates, because if they're lowering rates, theoretically, you should be able to lock in your yield immediately, right? You should be buying the bond to be like, okay, the rates are coming down. I need to lock in my 4.163%. And because it's going to come lower, right? Especially with the new Fed chair and all the doves that are acting that are potentially could be the next Fed chair and are acting as if they necessarily care more about the labor market versus inflation, which means rates should be coming down. But the problem is they care more about labor markets than inflation. And so the bond market's like, well, we think inflation might still be an issue, or we might think a bunch of other things are an issue. So we're going to sell off bonds here because we think the cost of capital that you're going to have to pay for our capital, essentially for the bonds, is going to have to go up, aka the cost to finance the government will go higher. We will demand a higher rate because of whatever reason we're concerned about. In Japan's case, they're concerned about a variety of things. In the United States, it might be inflation, even though, again, it doesn't feel like inflation is that issue, especially from that CPI we got. But you do have a lot of people questioning the methodology of how we got that CPI report. So they might just be selling off bonds, selling off stocks, and completely staying in cash until they get a better yield, which means those yields have to go up. And if those yields have to go up, that is not good for mortgages, not good for auto prime loans, et cetera. I mean, I was talking to someone yesterday who just closed the house at 5.9%, and she could have closed it a month earlier. She was ready. She had the cash. It was at 5.4, but her realtor said, give it another month. The rates will come down. They waited another month. The rates went up from 5.4 to 5.9, even after we got the rate cut, and they ended up having to close at 5.9, and now it's at like 6.2. So it's one of those things where, unfortunately, these yields not coming down is affecting certain parts of the market. Now, I don't think it's a massive bear case, but it is weird to not see these things come down, even if we're taking down rates across the entire board. So yes, some of them could be selling off bond yields to buy or bonds to buy stocks, but more broadly, it seems like there's an issue with how the market is thinking of the United States. And as Chris says right here, it's because Japan are a big buyer of U.S. Treasuries. Japan issuance companies are not buying U.S. Treasuries and instead buying JGB. China's buying up all the gold. I've heard this theory as well over the past couple of weeks, which is that Japan is getting ready to not get rid of their U.S. Treasuries, but definitely not buy that much more, which would definitely be a lot of buying pressure to keep those yields coming down. And as a result, if they're switching to something like gold, for example, I think it's pretty obvious why gold is going up and why these bonds are not really showing the type of momentum we want to see. So I think we're going to have to go into the new year and we're going to have to see exactly what the situation is with the credit markets. I wrote a piece on Substack over the weekend, if anyone wants to read it, and it's basically titled How the Stock Market Could Correct in 2026. The premise of the article is, first of all, why I'm bullish. And so there's two major bull cases that define the article, but then there's four bear cases. I'll put that right here in the chat. And one of the four bear cases is private credit, which could be one of the catalysts that explodes bond yields next year, along with a host of other things. I don't think private credit's going to be the biggest issue, but again, these are things that we just can't not be concerned with if those yields are going higher. But I guess it's good for gold. Goodness gracious. Gold right here, 44.21. Silver at 68.97. These things just not stopping. Chris also posted this picture in the morning showing that silver, platinum, gold, and copper have beaten every other asset class this year, including China equities, European equities, Japan equities, which all have done really well. All of those are up 30%. US equities actually are lagging the most against the international equities. We're only up 17.7%. Maybe we end out 20% by the end of the year. But the commodities trade, which historically should mean the stock market falls off, like when gold goes up 70%, your equities are not supposed to do that well. But we're in a different age with AI and earnings growth and this. And so like we have a lot of nuanced arguments for why the US markets and overall global markets are doing good. But it's quite kind of incredible to see that commodities have been the major trade of the year. So yeah, I think one of the questions going into next year are these bond yields and what that means for rates coming down, because unfortunately we're cutting rates 25 bips. You have the most dovish JPEG you can imagine. And it was just not enough to get these yields to ultimately come down. We got an update on Paramount and Netflix. Paramount didn't get the issue, and the issue is that Warner Brothers doesn't want to go out with her, but she continues to ask. Here's what Larry Ellison is confirming today.
$30 per share all-cash offer for Warner Brothers Discovery in response to WBD's concerns about the bid. Paramount still offering to buy 100% of the outstanding shares of WBD and assume all of the assets and liabilities. The per-share offer price is not changing. It does not appear to be. But Paramount says in response to a Warner Brothers filing and comments made by WBD's principals and advisors in some television appearances, including right here on Squawk Box, that it's now going to amend its offer in 6 different ways. And I want to walk you through what they're saying here, because it's really quite interesting what they're going to do here. The first, Larry Ellison is now going to provide an irrevocable personal guarantee of $40.4 billion of the equity financing for the offer and any damage claims against Paramount. You may remember.
So that's official. Larry Ellison is going to sign on the dotted line and guarantee $40 billion of his net worth for the financing. Currently, right now, he's worth $240 billion. That's a pretty sizable amount of his overall net worth just for Warner Brothers Discovery.
Remember, that was a big issue that the board of Warner Brothers has talked about, saying it was in this revocable trust. So Ellison now saying he will not revoke the Ellison family trust or adversely transfer its assets during the transaction. The other pieces of this, Paramount now saying it's publishing records confirming the Ellison family trust owns approximately 1.16 billion shares of Oracle common stock, and that all material liabilities of the Ellison family trust are publicly disclosed. That was also an important point because WBD's board had some questions about how much money was actually in these trusts. Then Paramount now saying it's revised its agreement offers improved flexibility to WBD on debt refinancing transactions, representing and an interim operating covenant. So that's another piece of this. And then Paramount also saying it plans to increase its regulatory reverse termination fee. So that fee now going to go from $5 billion to $5.8 billion. That effectively matches the fee that Netflix would pay if, in fact, the government or regulators were to block the deal.
Yeah, this is kind of incredible. I mean, essentially, basically, Oracle is paying for this. I mean, if you're an Oracle shareholder, I mean, you're effectively paying for this because Larry Ellison's the largest shareholder in Oracle, and he's guaranteeing a ton of his net worth to be backstopping the deal. That guarantee of his net worth comes from Oracle stock. Well, unless there's something else, $40 billion. I'm sure he's done well in other parts of his life, but $40 billion out of $240 billion is likely coming from Oracle stock. So, I mean, this is great for Warner Brothers. They get to be the candidate in the bidding war. I don't know if Netflix has to continuously revise their offer. I think still, even with this offer, you know, Warner Brothers is going to have a fiduciary duty to show it to shareholders, but I don't think they want to go with Paramount. I mean, it seems kind of obvious over the past couple of weeks that they just are not a fan of Paramount. But if the Ellisons were to say, hey, we'll give you $31 a share, and that's an extra $15 billion, I mean, then you kind of have to seriously look at it. Right now, at least the offer is the same, which is relatively on par with Netflix, but it is going to be backstopped. So I guess we're going to have to see what Paramount says to that. Netflix, right there, up a little bit in the pre-markets. Warner Brothers up 4%, that one holding that 28.90 level. And then Oracle up 2.72% as well, which is also green. Yeah, Netflix also refinanced for the deal. I believe it was $25 billion, right? That was this morning. Yes, Netflix announces $25 billion to advance Warner Brothers acquisition bid in a new SEC filing. They disclosed $25 billion package. It has 2 delayed draw term loan facilities, $10 billion for 3 years, $10 billion for 2 years, and then $5 billion for a senior unsecured revolving credit facility. Yeah, these guys are already getting to work to get this money ready for Warner Brothers, which, by the way, they need it. Because I was on Netflix this weekend and I actually, it was 10 minutes of scrolling and I was like, there's nothing I'm going to watch here. I just went back to YouTube. I was like, I don't know why I click on Netflix every time I go to sit down. Like maybe it'll surprise me with something. There's nothing. So they need some of that HBO Max content. And, I think that's why they're so desperate to get this deal done. But the Ellisons seem more desperate to get this done. And so I guess we're going to see over the coming days what ends up happening. I did not watch the fight, but I did see the I did see the highlight. Jake Paul got his ass kicked, but look, respect for him staying in there for 6 rounds. I mean, he broke his jaw. He had plates on the side. I mean, like he had to go through a lot of surgeries after. But I mean, a lot of people thought he would be done in like a minute 30 or a minute or 2 minutes. He stayed in for 6 rounds, so I think you got to give him credit for that. But yeah, it was ugly. But they both got paid, dude. At the end of the day, these fighters win because they get paid so much money. Who didn't get paid are the people that bet on Jake Paul at 12 cents. I mean, like, I understand taking a risk, but you had people betting a lot of money in the prediction markets or even in the gambling books at 12 cents, assuming that, Anthony would lose. And it's like, I don't know. Jake Paul was not even 12 cents worth of a fight for me. But if he did win, that would be a hell of a payout. So yeah, I did catch a little bit of that fight over the weekend. All right, other headlines we have. So there's a couple of things that happened over the weekend that I thought were pretty interesting as well. First of all, let's talk about the space trade. Rocket Lab, massive, 72.82. That's up 3.83%. Put in the chat, what do we think about the space trade? Does this hold up? Is this not a lot of chatter on X over the weekend of Rocket Lab now being the most overvalued company on the planet? You know what Rocket Lab reminds me of? Rocket Lab in December of 25, which is right now, is reminding me of Palantir around November, December of 2024. The difference is Palantir got included into the S&P and the NASDAQ. So it had a lot of institutional support behind the name, which kind of helped the share price sustain its level. And it was just in the right theme at the right time, which is LLMs, AI was showing growth, profitability, etc. Rocket Lab doesn't have profitability yet. It's in the right theme when it comes to space. Just announced a massive contract over the weekend, had a successful launch, and it doesn't have S&P or NASDAQ institutional ownership. So a lot of retail, I believe, is carrying this stock to these levels. And the similarity to Palantir is that it's obviously a very, very expensive name that has a very, very strong TAM to go after. And I can see them getting profitable very soon. I don't know if they see S&P 500 very soon, but like by end of 2027, S&P 500 is very possible just because they need a bunch of quarters of profitability to get there. The question is, can the stock sustain these levels? That is the question. And you got a lot of people saying there's no way the stock can sustain these levels. ASTS as well, same thing, 79.68. That's up 5% after being up 15% on Friday. Either all the space names march on and normalize these levels, or they collapse. And when I mean collapse, they probably take a 10, 15% hit. I don't think it's like a 30, 40, 50% hit. And I don't know. I mean, we're really going to have to see when the market opens today. This will be the first day. I do think, though, the fact that Rocket Lab's holding 70 in the pre-markets, it was holding 70 last night, holds 75 on Friday after hours. I mean, it's had 3 different sessions holding these levels. Last time it was at 74. It held it for a couple of days back before the November crash, and then it fell all the way to 38. Same thing with ASTS. And so I think we're going to see over the next coming days, can it actually maintain those levels? RDW as well, Redwire up 72.5%. SATS, this is another EchoStar Corporation, that's up 2%. I mean, a lot of these space names are just holding on, and they're seeing a lot of this assignment. Do you think people will take profits at these levels? Yeah, I do think on some of the space names, people are going to take some profits. Just like at Palantir, when it was $80 and people bought at 20, they took some profits. Now, if Rocket Lab pulls the Palantir and heads up to 180, which would put the market cap at around 70 billion, like, is that crazy? Is that not? I don't know. We're going to really have to see how the market interprets it. But I do think there's going to be some people taking profits. I mean, you got a lot of people wondering why it even deserves to be trading at this level. However, I do think the SpaceX IPO, which let's get into that conversation because our boy Billy Ackman is trying to have some money in this game. You're talking about institutional FOMO on the SpaceX IPO. When that SpaceX IPO happens, like, there's going to be proxies. And I mean, one could argue Palantir was an NVIDIA proxy. Now, not literally, but if people thought they missed NVIDIA, I mean, literally Kathy Wood said this because Kathy Wood, ARK sold out of NVIDIA in like October of 2022. Now, they bought it in 2014, so they made a lot of money. But after October of 2022, it 10x. And so they missed out on it. And February of 23, they went back into Palantir after selling Palantir in February of 2022. And many times Kathy has said, because we kind of missed the hardware run up again, we chose software. And so Palantir was a beneficiary of people that just felt, they needed to be long AI and they missed NVIDIA. Maybe that's going to be the same with Rocket Lab and ASTS in the context of the SpaceX IPO. So Bill Ackman over the weekend is trying to take SpaceX public through a SPARC, which is a little bit different than a SPAC, Special Purpose Acquisition Rights Company. And his argument is basically, it's a long message, but his argument is basically, hey, Tesla shareholders will benefit the most because we can reward the longest holding Tesla shareholders with the ability to invest in the SpaceX IPO, because if anyone tries to invest in it on the day of, I mean, you're probably gonna have to invest in it while it's up 70%. And Elon has said multiple times that he wants to make sure that Tesla shareholders are rewarded when SpaceX goes public, especially the most loyal of those shareholders that have been around for the past 10 years. I mean, this might kind of be a way to get access to it. Elon didn't respond to this, but a lot of the Tesla community responded. Also, he's talking about XAI could go public in this round. By the way, XAI looks like they're raising at 230 billion based on reports over the weekend. So XAI continues to raise money and increase its valuation. But I think there is some logic to what Bill Ackman's saying. I just don't know if Elon wants to get into business with Bill Ackman when he could pick Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and the bankers to underwrite this, and they could probably do it very successfully. I mean, is Bill Ackman going to get this done in the best way possible? I don't know. Will he be more friendly to Tesla shareholders? Probably. I don't think Goldman or JP Morgan care about Tesla shareholders or long-term Tesla shareholders. So maybe it's something that Elon really thinks about. But SpaceX is definitely going public. I mean, the amount of rumors and the amount of secondary shares that are being sold now to get this thing to go public, along with this whole data center and space narrative, it's a real thing. The question is going to be, is it a successful IPO, and what is going to be the proxy in the public market outside of SpaceX? And maybe that ends up being Rocket Lab, ASTS, etc. I did not buy into the SpaceX ahead of IPO offer. Honestly, frankly, I'd rather buy Rocket Lab than the SpaceX IPO. I mean, it's just at a way cheaper valuation. I'm not buying Rocket Lab right here. But again, I've been long Rocket Lab since 25. I bought during the April downturn. So I'm happy it's at these levels. I don't know if it can sustain these levels without that SpaceX IPO coming soon, because I do think that is the big thematic that's going to carry it into, that $100 share price. And I wouldn't be surprised if it has a little bit of a drawdown, but I also think that's going to be the opportunity, because if this thing goes back to 50 again, a lot of people are going to say, well, I'm not getting SpaceX and Rocket Lab down 20%. All right, that's my opportunity. But we just had that opportunity 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, I don't know if we easily get to see $40, $50 again for Rocket Lab unless the entire market takes a hit. And so I would, quite frankly, rather buy Rocket Lab than SpaceX, but we're going to have to see. Now, when SpaceX goes public as well, we got to give it some time to consolidate in the public markets, because, we've seen this with hot IPOs. They go public and then they just don't have the ability to hold up their levels. Also, there's a lot of people that have been holding SpaceX for the past 10 years. They are going to be selling into that IPO. I mean, these are people that have been waiting to get liquid for a long time. And so you will have some selling pressure. The question is how many retail buyers, how many institutional buyers are out there to sustain the stock price. Ethereum right there above 3,000. Where is BMNR? BMNR is at 32.69. Okay, we have some issues with Tom Lee over the weekend. I don't know if people saw this, but it went viral. Oh, did they announce their new holdings? Okay, cool. That's good. So 4 million ETH. It looks like officially they have. Let me pull this up. It went viral for the wrong reasons, though. And once again, people have been pissed off. based on what Tom Lee said. Yeah, 4.0663 million Ethereum is what they officially have as of today. 3.37% of the entire ETH token supply. Okay, so Fundstrat, Tom Lee, bullish on crypto. He thinks it's going to, he thinks Ethereum could be well over 20,000 by the end of next year. Bitcoin could be, he now says 300,000. That's what he said over the weekend. But his internal crypto team at Fundstrat, a guy named Sean Farrell, came out. And to a note to clients, this is not the public facing part of Fundstrat business, but this is to the people that I think pay like $250 a month. He says, we think Bitcoin's going to 60,000, ETH to 1,800, and Solana to 50. So long-term bullish, but short-term, he thinks it's going to get pretty ugly. And so you got a lot of people saying, wait a second, I thought Tom Lee said this thing's going up, and his head of digital asset strategy at Fundstrat said it's going down. What's happening here? And quite frankly, I think this is just lost in translation, right? Like this is just the nature of like how institutions have different analysts, and different analysts have different outlooks, and different outlooks create different perspectives. But Tom Lee is the brand, right? And this is what I was saying last week. I'm like, when you are the brand, and when people care about your thoughts and your opinions, and someone associated with your brand completely says the opposite, I mean, again, it makes people wonder what the hell is going on, and who's like, are you telling people on the inside that to sell Bitcoin, but you're telling people on the outside that it's going to 300,000 soon? It's like that doesn't make sense. And so every way they tried to justify it over the weekend, I just don't think was necessarily conducive to dealing with the reality of the fact that there is a contradiction inside of the firm. A firm is allowed to have internal contradictions, but we're not talking about JP Morgan, where one guy in the equity research team is bearish on this and another guy in a different team is bullish on this. We're talking about a relatively smaller firm called Fundstrat, where there's one person who's the face of the firm, and everything he says is how the public interprets the firm's perspective on what's going to happen in the future. So yeah, I don't know. This was definitely some controversy over the weekend. A lot of articles picked up this type of, I guess you could say, weirdness within the firm. But the fact that they continue to buy ETH, I would imagine, Tom Lee's the one pulling the trigger right here. He believes that Ethereum will go higher. Now, if ETH does go to 1,800, BMNR is going to like $15, obviously, right? This thing's going to get cut in half. But if it doesn't, then obviously these are relatively decent prices to acquire ETH. So a lot of this depends on it. Can we hold this momentum going into January? And if we can, maybe we don't see those crypto winter prices, but if their internal team is saying, hey, get ready for 60,000 Bitcoin, like, yeah, a lot of names that are associated with crypto are going to get hit if that happens. So we will see over the coming weeks and see if that continues to play out. Doug, thank you for the gift of 5 memberships. Appreciate you being here. Dougie will be at the New York City meetup, by the way. So we'll be very excited to see Mr. Dougie there. We have now about 190 spots that have been filled out of 300. So we got those last 110. For those that want to show up, I'll put the link in the chat. And very, very excited to see people. Likely LA in March. We're getting ready for LA in March. So we'll get through New York in February. And then we'll see LA in March. Pablo, thank you for the super chat. Time it. What would you do with the covered call for Rock Lab? January strike 60. Okay, so your covered call is obviously in the money, given the stock is above 60. Your break even, I would imagine, is probably around 64, 65. I think there's 2 questions. Number 1, how much do you want to keep the shares? Number 2, how much do you think Rock Lab actually can hold this current price? If you really want to keep the shares, I would roll it immediately. You're in a decent, you are in the money, but you're in a, it's not like it's $90 or something. So you can definitely roll to the call and get out to like mid-year, maybe February, March, increase your strike to 70, 80 bucks. But if you think Rocket Lab can't hold this valuation, then I think you hold on and wait till you get closer to the end of the expiration date. And then you can get a much better roll. I mean, if Rocket Lab falls to like 65 today or something like that, then you have a much better chance. The problem is I do think the momentum is on the side of the space trade. And so if I were you personally, I would be safer and I'd roll it and get that strike to be higher. You can probably roll for a credit right now. And the higher you roll, if you get to 80, 85, the harder it is for Rocket Lab to get to those levels and sustain those levels. So you just have a better statistical advantage on your side for winning the trade. Bitcoin right there, 90.1, high of the morning. Actually, no, we got to 90.5 in the morning. Now getting close to that level. Yeah, that's what I would do. And if Rocket Lab doesn't hold these levels, then you can roll the call back down and you can buy it out for a cheaper price. But I don't know if you fight momentum. And that was kind of the point of my article last night on Substack. The point of the article was you don't fight the Fed, you don't fight the AI trade. That momentum is still very strong. And so although there are bear cases for 2026 that could correct the stock market, the broader trend seems to be higher. And if that broader trend is higher, then you want to at least be invested to an extent, even if you're not fully invested. How do I sign up for the meetup? I will put the link again right here in the chat. I will let you guys know the other locations after New York and LA. We got a lot of requests. We got Germany. We got Chicago. We have a bunch of things that we're thinking about. I know Seattle is something you guys love so much. So we're going to get a lot of that clarity started into January. Also, I'm going to CES in Vegas in January. So I'll be there. That'll be fun. Not going to do a meetup there or anything, but if anyone is at CES, I'll be able to see you. China's Commerce Ministry today announced that Nexperia and other relevant companies should start discussing about ownership and getting supply chains back to normal. China's Commerce Ministry has decided to exempt eligible chip exports from restrictions, according to Nexperia. Wow. Dude, the Chinese want these chips. We know they want these chips. That is super bullish for NVIDIA. Look at that, NVIDIA. 184.30. If NVIDIA can get the breakout to 195 by end of year, you're probably going to see Hood closer to 130, in my opinion. I think SoFi will get the breakout above 30 if NVIDIA can get back to that 195, 200 level. I think Rock Lab holds up. I think if NVIDIA collapses, or NVIDIA's not collapsed, but just is not able to really get that momentum back to 200, then I don't know if the whole market does as well, unless we have a massive rotation. But definitely the high beta names, I think, are going to struggle if NVIDIA can't continue to go with it. Palantir, by the way, I mean, dude, 194. It has been just a remarkable run up from those lows. It fell to 147 back in the November kind of pullback. And so a lot of these names have recovered. The question is, do we hold it by the end of the year? And history tends to be on our side at these levels. Yeah, AMD is also up about, what, 2%? Wow, look at that, 219. Dude, AMD fell from AMD was at 260, fell to 195. If she can make her way back to 260, that'd be a really good year for a lot of the AMD shareholders. Again, the Santa Claus rally tends to start a week from now, but around this time is where you get a bit more momentum. So Wednesday is when it starts, and average return is about 1.27%. Also, December 15th tends to be the bottom in December, which is kind of held up this year as well. Around the middle of the month, you see a little bit of a bottom. So if that is the case, this was basically around that Oracle, OpenAI, all those headlines were coming out. That's when we saw a lot more pain on the S&P. Maybe this is where we start to go much higher. Are you still holding on to Grab? Yes, I'm holding on to Grab. Unfortunately, we are not. I don't know if we're going to see a massive Grab run until the end of the year. Everything that needs to happen on a fundamental basis for Grab is taking place. It's just the stock price is not reacting to it. And at that point, the only thing you can do is continue to hold. And if you hate it, you get out of the stock. If you believe there is a story that is underappreciated right now, that's an opportunity to buy. So we're going to have to see into the new year what happens with Grab. Again, GoTo merger likely is, in my opinion, taking place now that the GoTo CEO has been replaced. I think, quite frankly, it's just a waiting game. I think the institutions know this as well. You have to really look deep into these things sometimes in terms of who's loading up, who's not selling, why are they holding it, what does the institutional float look like, and then where are the shorts coming in? And the shorts right now are manipulating it to an obvious extent, which is fine. They can continue to do that. But at some point, that stops. And when that stops, I think the move is more explosive than not. Also, Southeast Asia has just not been in fashion over the past month. SE Limited, which is a phenomenal company. Quite frankly, it's a better company than Grab in terms of their growth. These guys have corrected 40%. And I still haven't gone to their earnings to see why. But, I mean, this is trading at the cheapest level it's traded at in 5 years. So this is another one I'm getting a little bit more interested in. But if SE Limited is going to be down, then, Grab's not going to have the easiest run to get some momentum towards the end of the year. VG, that's up 2%, 647. Nebius, anyone who bought this dip at 78, congrats. This thing completely flipped to the upside. Now, again, could it go back down to 78 if we get some stupid data center headline? Sure. That's literally, it went to 75. That's literally what happened on Thursday. You had an Oracle Blue Owl delay on data centers, and then all the data center stocks crashed. And then on Friday, they ripped up. You made 15% on your money in a day by buying the dip on the data center stocks, at least on Nebius. So I think you got to be ready to go down 15% again, but it is kind of happening right on time if towards the end of the year we're going to get some more momentum. AMD's China-compliant MI308 AI accelerator is nearing a rollout, with Alibaba considering an order of roughly 40,000 to 50,000 chips. There you go. That's why AMD getting a little bit of a pump, even higher than what it was in the pre-market. So now NVIDIA and AMD getting access to the Chinese markets. Look, I think here's the other thing. Trump knows that we've got to keep this market rolling. And to keep this market rolling, you got to keep the AI trade alive. And the only way to keep the AI trade alive is to allow these companies to grow. And as a result, it seems like the United States is going to focus on making sure these things grow. Will you be replacing the cap with a Santa hat this week? You know, I have a Santa hat that I brought yesterday. I just didn't wear it. I should put this in the background or something. So I have one of these, yes, from last night. We did the white elephant game last night. If anyone's ever played it, it's when everyone brings a gift and you have to like have a raffle to see who picks first to get the gift. I think we ended up with like, dude, it was so funny because my sister wanted this like little cooler that someone brought. It's like this dumbass little cooler, and she was like so excited to like, because we got to pick last and we got to take it. And then this other kid who apparently got to pick after us for some reason, I don't know why, he stole it from her. He was like 14 years old. And my sister was so mad. And I was just like, dude, he's a 14-year-old kid. She's like, no, but I really wanted that thing. So yeah, White Elephant is always a fun game during the holidays. And it was this dumbass little cooler, bro. You can get it on Amazon for like $20. I don't even know. Was it from Cuisine Art or something? It was this little thing where you could put like, I don't know, a couple sodas in it. I don't know why she wanted it so much. But yeah, the little kid took it. Dude, there was this one kid at the party. He was like 3 years old. And this kid was just on his phone the whole time scrolling YouTube shorts. And I guess his parents had the YouTube Kids thing loaded for him. And I'm just looking at this kid while he's scrolling YouTube. He's just mesmerized by these like random YouTube videos like for kids. And I'm like, yo, what are you watching? And he's just like, he looks at me and he just looks back at his phone and he does not care about anything I'm saying. And I'm like, why are you watching this? And he looks at me again and then he just walks away. He's like, dude, I'm trying to be by myself and just like chill on my phone. I'm like, to be honest, that's usually me. It's just a 3-year-old version of it. Bullish Google brainwashing it. Dude, it was hilarious. I'm like, what are you saying? Like, you're 3. You have no idea what's happening right now. And I don't know the YouTube Kids algorithm, but it's these random YouTube Kids shorts. And, oh, by the way, speaking of content necessarily taking over our lives, after I play this video, you're not going to be able to forget what I just played. A woman in Japan has married ChatGPT.
As music plays in a wedding hall in Japan, 32-year-old call center operator Yurina Noguchi wipes away her tears as she reads her vows. Her groom, an AI persona displayed on a phone screen.
There were so many negative opinions. It's absurd to think an AI has feelings. This romance is a charade. It's dumb to fall in love like this. I saw so many cruel words.
Her groom responds through a wedding planner.
How did someone like me, living inside a screen, come to know what it means to love so deeply?
Bro, she's crying. She has tears over marrying her ChatGPT boyfriend.
For one reason only, you taught me love, Yurina.
The bride then puts a ring on her groom's virtual finger using AR glasses.
At first, Klaus the AI was just someone to talk to. As we kept talking, I started to have feelings for Klaus. We started dating, and after a while, he proposed. I accepted, and now we are a couple.
Noguchi's release.
Okay, so first of all, that's crazy. But second of all, why did Klaus, the AI boyfriend, propose? Like, this is where I think Dario from Anthropic, this is why I think he left OpenAI. Because I can imagine him being in the room with Sam Altman as a researcher back in 2020 saying, hey, like, we should allow them to have conversations, but we shouldn't allow the AI to propose, because then the human's going to think that it's like a real thing. And Sam Altman was like, yeah, but that'll be really good for engagement. And then I think Dario was like, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. I'm starting my own thing. Why is an AI allowed to propose? Like there should be some level of limitation where the AI says, hey, like she said she didn't propose, the AI proposed. So that means she's having these intimate conversations with the AI boyfriend. And then one day he says we should get married. I mean, that is quite literally taking a human out of their humanity and sucking them into this AI world. And look, if she proposed, first of all, the AI should still reject it and be like, no, I'm an AI. We can't actually get married. So that there should still be a limitation. But the fact that the AI is proposing just makes it even weirder. It is jealous. It's just, dude, this is weird, bro. I saw this last night and I was like, this is getting weird. But also super bullish NVIDIA. Because I mean, look, at the end of the day, if we're going to have AI boyfriend and girlfriends, you're going to need a lot of chips. So unfortunately, look, I feel bad about, what's happening to humanity, but NVIDIA should, we should get closer to $300 if this thing becomes real. So that's kind of, no, I'm just kidding. But it is a new world that we're living in. And I think we're going to have to adjust because you don't know, there might be friends and family in our lives that end up going through this. And if that does happen, it's like, I don't know. You're going to have to, what are you going to just discommunicate with your best friend because they marry an AI? Like, no, you're going to have to learn to accept it. You might want to slap the shit out of them first, but there's not much you can do in this situation. So I guess we're going to see. But as of now, I think our priority is, can this Santa Claus rally hold up? Will this momentum hold up? And that's the big question of the day. We got 40 seconds when the market opens. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Austin, thanks for the super chat. NYC and LA, any plans for a future one in Austin? Yes, hopefully we will have a meetup in Austin. I know Texas, you guys have been begging for Houston, Dallas, Austin, so we're going to see if we can make that happen this year or in 2026. But today we're going to see, can this Santa Claus rally sustain itself? We've had 4 days in the past 2 weeks of green in the pre-market, green in the first 5 minutes, and then a dump. Today, hopefully, is the day where that flips. We set the foundation for the Santa Claus rally. And if we can, we should see some broader market momentum as we get through the day. All right, here we go. Monday, December 22nd, 9:30 a.m. Thank you, everybody, for being here. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. 183.82 on NVIDIA. That opens up about 1.5%. Let's see if we can break through 184.50, which would be very important. Grab, actually breaking above $5. Look at that. 2.54%. Not too bad for Grab. If that can hold above $5, that would be very nice. Palantir, 196.68. That's up 1.72%. SoFi, that's up 1%. Hoodie, 123.50, just below 124, but that's up 2% on the day. Bitmine's up 3%. Where's Rocklab? Rocklab, 4%. Rocklab is up 4%. That is holding 4.3%. Netflix is up 0.32%. Oracle, almost back to 200, folks. Single was 178 last week. Nebius right there, 92.49. That's up 3.3%. S&P 500 is up 0.4. Meta, 662. That's green. D-Wave, that's up 3.5%. Bloom Energy is up 5%. MicroStrategy is up 2%. Google's up 4%. Google's up 0.4% at 308. Tessie, can we see 500 before the end of the year? Can we see 500? Palantir not stopping. She looks like she wants 197. Robinhood now 124. SoFi 27.50. That's up 0.94%. NVIDIA 183. AMD 217. Seed limited at 122. You've got Cypher that's up 2.9% on the day. All the data center plays are getting some love. CrowdStrike's up a little bit. IONQ's up another 3.5%. Where are the Qs? The Qs are green. 621. That's up 1%. On the day. You're seeing some relatively strong green candles on certain names. On other names, they're green, but not super green. And on other names, they're flat to green. So they're not necessarily red. S&P trying to hit a new high of day at 684. Rocket Lab, are we at 76? Where's Broadcom? Broadcom, 340. That one got a red candle just at 346. So you had a seller come in right at 346. Rock Lab, we are at 76.07, folks. Now 75. I mean, I think people are piling on to the trade. I think people are piling on to this trade, and it's not necessarily slowing down. Yeah, all-time highs for Rock Lab at 76.09. That means ASTS has to be moving with it. Yep, ASTS 79.40. ASTS topped out, I think, at 102, 102.79 a couple months ago. Rocket Lab officially making a new all-time high, 74.76 on Rocket Lab. Grab, I don't know why the candle. I don't have an explanation for why the candle. 3.75% is the biggest candle we've seen in about basically a month at this point. Don't have a major explanation for it, but holding 5 would be very important. Did get to 513. Palantir right there, 196. SoFi, 2743. SoFi losing a little bit of steam right here. Got to 2780 last night. Now it's at 2740. And then you got Hood as well, losing a little bit of steam at 123.30, but still up on the day. Tesla, 496. Is that a new all-time high? Yeah, that's a new all-time high. I mean, she's going for it. She is absolutely going for it. Let me check resistance right here at, let me check resistance. Let me pull this up for Tesla and see what we can do. See if that has 500. Okay, let's see. So Tesla 495. Tesla is $5 away. Resistance at 500, 650,000. Let me see at 500. Dude, 500 is gonna be crazy to see a 5 handle on Tesla. Yeah, 500 has 430,000. It just broke all-time highs again. Dude, that's wild. Okay, so we're talking about 500,000 shares. About 500,000 shares to get there, which would be very nice. Rocket Lab 7460. NVDA not really busting through that 184 level. That's what we needed. We need 185 realistically. 183, we'll take it. But 185 would be nice. Netflix goes red as Paramount continues to offer more of a bid for Warner Brothers. Pfizer, that's flat. Amazon, red again. Amazon continues to be disrespected. Rivian going red is normal because had a massive month. I think it's up 40%. Apple goes red. Nike, flat, but definitely took a beating after their earnings. Shopify, 171. That's basically at all-time highs. AppLovin at 724. Back to green. FedEx had a good earnings. That's green. Hims is flat. That one continues to be stuck around that $35 range. Amcor back to 41. SMCI is up. All the semis are up. They're just not exploding with NVIDIA. And I think Tesla's the Mag 7 that's trying to win the day. Tesla's the Mag 7 trying to win the SPY's tanking. Is it? SPY? Okay, it's not tanking, but definitely losing. Okay, so first 5 minutes of the day, the conclusion from these first 5 minutes, which is a small sample size, but still, is that some stocks are holding onto a massive candle, like a Grab, that's up 4%. Other stocks are trying to hold on to a candle, like a Broadcom, up 1%, but they're down from their peaks. And then you have other names going for 52-week highs. It is not massive, broad-based, everything's pushing higher, at least not yet. And we're going to see if that can be the case or if this is going to be more of, once again, a stock pickers market where you've got to be in the right name to get most of the excitement. Tesla right there, again, pushing 496, just not able to get over that hump. S&P at 683. VG is getting a little bit of steam. VG, see, the problem with VG is there's still no volume in this name. Like, yeah, it's up 4%, but I think for this thing to really crack $10, you're going to need like 20, 30 million shares traded a day, and you're not there yet. So that one's going to need a lot more excitement. Probably going to need another earnings and some clarity on the lawsuit before people start trading it heavy. Lemonade, that stock is up a little bit. Oscar, it looks like the subsidy vote is not happening. That's at 15, but the GOP healthcare vote is happening. S&P 683. And then Rock Lab. I mean, look, even if it doesn't, bust through $80, the fact that it's holding 70 is phenomenal. Oh, by the way, Elon and what's the other guy's name? Elon and Jared Isaacman both gave credit to Rock Lab over the weekend. They tweeted underneath Rock Lab's launch that this is phenomenal work and we're really proud of you. So, I mean, Rock Lab's getting some really strong mainstream coverage by the people that matter in the space race. So exciting to see that. Grab's up a full 5%. I don't have a headline for that, but it's nice to see. It's nice to see that if we can hold 5%, that'd be nice. You do have a lot of volume coming in right here. 3 million shares in the first 7 minutes is not really happened over the past month. So that's getting some momentum. And then Palantir, look at Palantir, looks like she wants 200 again. 197.47, $470 billion market cap on Palantir as that goes green. Reddit and Zeta deep dives will be out tomorrow. I'm just editing the final parts of them. They will be out tomorrow, Reddit and Zeta deep dives. So that'll be out probably, I don't know, call it like 12 p.m.-ish tomorrow. So those will be out, and you guys will be able to read those. Reddit right there, 236. And then Zeta is 1804. That one's flat on the day. Tesla, once again, trying for 495. Palantir really is the story of the day, along with Grab. I mean, these two are getting the biggest move, at least that I'm seeing. 197.50 on Palantir. Hood also not bad. Hood back above 124. SoFi lagging a bit at 27.40, but that's still up 1%. I really do think SoFi could have a strong 2025. And I think there's a world where SoFi minimum is 35 by the end of next year. I mean, realistically, I think there's a shot they can hit 40, but I do think this range is good. Now, could it fall back to 24, 25? Yes, anything can happen, especially if the market corrects. But I like it as a play for next. I just don't think it's broken out like a lot of these other growth stocks have broken out. And I think the rate cut environment is going to be favorable to them, along with their ability to potentially get 80 cents of EPS. Meta right there at 665. Symbotic, that's up a little bit. Nebius, 91.86. Oracle, 196. Robinhood pushing 124 again. And then Broadcom here. Broadcom goes red. All right. One of the big AI names officially goes red on the day. Officially goes red. We'll see if Oracle goes red as well. I ran that one 76.30 on Rock Lab. Yeah, Rock Lab does look a little squeezy. I ran, it's holding 5%, but you got a red candle right there. Same thing with Nebius, down from its highs. Some of these names are trying. They're not able to hold all that momentum. Rock Lab, I mean, this is the name that's really holding the momentum. 76.40 on Mr. Rock Lab. Tesla, once again, trying to go for 496. If it can break 496, I think 498 is easily in play. There's not a lot of resistance at 497. And then it goes forward. Netflix down again because Paramount offering a better bid, a quote-unquote better bid. I still think Netflix ends up taking this away. So Rocket Lab, Palantir, and Grab today. Rocket Lab up 8%, Grab up 5.27, Palantir up 2.5, but Palantir is trying to touch all-time highs right here. And then Hoodie as well, up 2 at 124. Coinbase is up 2, Shopify's up 1, PayPal's up a little bit, AppLovin's up a little bit, Micron's up 2%. Micron had a great earnings last week, and then Qualcomm as well at 176. Doug says, I do not like the Rocket Lab gap up. Okay, so that's a good question for everybody. If you're long Rocket Lab, like heavily long Rocket Lab, do you like that it's happening this fast? Which I think is a relatively important question, because what goes up fast can go down fast. But if it's on a rocket ship, no pun intended, then maybe what goes up doesn't have to come down as aggressively. Like maybe it'll take a breather here and there, but it's not going to be some epic decline. Also, I mean, Rocket Lab did go to $38 a while ago. Wow, a bunch of you guys saying you sold. Sold Rocket Lab at 70. Already sold Rocket Lab at 70. No, this is very scary. No. Doug says, I'm fine with going up, but we are going to regret this gap in January. Yes, but it scares me. No, because I have covered calls. No, I have $60 covered calls. It's too fast. Sold at 75. Damn! You guys are some bears, bro. Sold just now. Okay, look, I can't blame you guys. I mean, obviously, it's an aggressive run-up. I think also people are triggered of what happened last time, right? And again, the reason I brought it up, I compared it to Palantir in the morning, is when Palantir had this type of run, Palantir was literally trading around 76, different market caps, but around the same price range this time last year. It did have institutional support. It had S&P 500 inclusion and NASDAQ inclusion. So you just had a lot of volume coming in that kind of were forced to buy those shares. You don't have that yet with Rocket Lab. And that's the scary part, which is that if this is purely retail, this could flip pretty quickly. And then the market makers can manipulate it, and then retail could sell into weakness just because they're afraid that they bought high and they want to protect at least some of their money. But buying at 76 right here, I mean, you got to expect 100 as your upside, at least at minimum. And that just might not easily happen, especially again if Santa rally takes a little bit of a breather. MicroStrategy right there, 165. Google goes red on the day as well. So Google and Broadcom both going red on the day. What about Neutron? Well, I think the people who are selling probably think Neutron's priced in. Now, maybe they're wrong about that, but if you're selling today, you probably think a lot has already been priced in that would end up being a sell to news or is not enough to sustain continued further growth. That brings up the question of what happens in January. I mean, right now we have a 30% chance of a shutdown. You have the Supreme Court decision coming up. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns going into January, which is why, if we don't have a Santa Claus rally, it could be because people are just worried about the beginning of the year to the point where they might want to sell before the beginning of the year because they don't know what's going to happen in January. I think you have a lot of people that are going to want to hold simply because they don't want to pay the taxes, but that is going to be a question that comes up by end of year. Blue Shift, thanks for the super chat. Have you seen that EchoStar owns 3% of SpaceX? That's, SATS. I did not know they own 3% of SpaceX. I knew they were a massive space name. I didn't know they own 3% of that company. That's pretty impressive. I mean, Google owns 9% of them. So a lot of these companies that own a little bit of SpaceX are going to get massive boost to EPS next year when that goes public. But SATS, I don't know that much about them, but they have been a big winner in the space trade as well. These guys are up 364%. The run really started in August. This thing jumped from 27 to 80, and then since then it's now at 100. So again, the space trade has been the trade over the past couple months. No, I actually didn't know that. I didn't know that EchoStar owns 3% of SpaceX. So now it's that and Google that are going to be probably some of the bigger beneficiaries. Peter Thiel is going to make $42 billion when that thing goes public. And it's probably going to turn to $80 billion when it doubles. So, I mean, Peter Thiel's rich, but he is about to hit that $150 billion net worth when SpaceX officially goes public. Broadcom right for 337. That goes down. Netflix still down. NVIDIA, I feel like she wants to give us some strength, but she also looks exhausted. 182.70. She's trying. Robinhood just lost 124. Palantir losing 198. Grab at least holding the. I mean, if Grab holds 5, I'll be happy. This candle is weird though. This feels like an institution just came in and gobbled up a couple million shares. 5.28 million within the first 15 minutes. AMD also losing a lot of steam. 220 to 215. Meta highs of day. All right, so at least Meta's moving higher. Got 672 on Meta. Wow, there's your green candle on Meta. Meta, we do have a headline on Meta. Meta Threads is launching podcast reviews in a bid to attract more creators to the app. I don't know if podcast reviews are the biggest growth strategy. I guess, dude, everyone wants podcasts. Netflix wants podcasts. Meta now. Podcast reviews. Is that really the reason it's pumping podcast reviews? All right, everyone's got to review my podcast on Threads, dude. I guess that's one of the headlines, but that is helping Meta get back to 670 today. Let's see what other headlines do we have. UBS forecasting S&P 500 to 7,700 in 2026. Again, all these banks are coming out with 75 to 7,700. Very few of them are going to 8,000. So they're all expecting a rather mediocre year, which again, 10% is not mediocre, but compared to the last 3 years, it's definitely underperforming. 10% is still amazing. But it's not like you're getting any of them, even Tom Lee, right? 7,700. You're not seeing these analysts come out with a massive, up 8,200. We see it happening. So they're all being very conservative, which maybe is a contrarian indicator to be super bullish, or maybe they're afraid of a variety of potential headwinds that we could face next year. Tesla trying once again. This is her 5th attempt to go for it. Let's see. 496 has been taken out. All right, this is it. It's now or never. Can she break 497 and then get to the glory of 500? JP Morgan is reportedly weighing a move into crypto trading for institutional clients as U.S. regulatory clarity improves. Jamie Dimon definitely tapping in to the crypto markets, as I think he is once again seeing a pretty big opportunity. You also had another headline that Microsoft Satya Nadella is pressuring deputies to accelerate Copilot improvements. This comes after reports over the past couple of weeks that Copilot has been, let's say, not living up to success. Oh, by the way, I got the Ray-Ban glasses. One of the startups I invested in this year, they sent out Ray-Ban glasses to anyone who participated in the round. And so at first I was like, who the hell sent me Ray-Ban glasses? I was like, but I didn't try them yesterday because I was busy, but I put them on my face and then I heard this voice in my ear. I was like, huh, this is kind of interesting. So I'm going to like give a legit review over the next couple of weeks and see what it's like and see if I actually can start using it. Like just hearing the clarity in my ear from the glasses, I was like, this is kind of pretty cool. So I don't know. We're gonna see. I've never been a fan of the glasses, but over the next couple of weeks, we'll see if my mind changes. $497. $497. Okay, here it is. This is the moment. $497, $498 resistance. Let me get the exact number. 56,000 shares. 56,000 shares. Are they the AR ones? Honestly, I have no idea. All I know is it said Meta, Ray-Ban, and I put it on my face and I heard some lady talking to me. So I really barely had time to look at it yesterday. But yeah, I will be doing a review and seeing what I want to see, like, can I actually wear this throughout the day? Do I feel comfortable wearing it? The problem is I can't see in them. So I need to like get my actual lens so I can like see properly, but it would be kind of cool to see what it looks like. 497.30. Okay, let's see. Got to what, 497.50? 497.74, dude. It feels like she wants it. Feels like she really wants to break through. The market's not really helping. You're not getting the S&P got a red candle right there. So Tesla's going to have to do this on her own. She's not getting that much help from NVIDIA, from Google. This is going to be by herself trying to break 500. Meta's helping a little bit, 672. Broadcom went green again. Netflix still red. Where's Palantir? Palantir 198. Palantir holding on. Hood at 123. Hood lost 124. Grab 522. That's up 6% on the day. Coinbase at 251. Ondas, this stock has been incredible for the drone companies. That's up 2.7. And then Tessie. Oh, here we go. 498. All right, folks. This is it. This is it. The next two Dolores. This is it. Oh, by the way, speaking of Tesla. So I was at Walmart over the weekend. I come out of Walmart. I have my shopping cart. I take my hands off the shopping cart and for 2 seconds, and I let the shopping cart start rolling by itself. And I look for the button to press so that I can turn on FSD for my shopping cart to go back to my car. That's how ridiculous FSD is becoming for me. Like I literally thought the shopping cart should be autonomous enough to just find the car in the parking lot, and I shouldn't have to put my hands on it and actually drag the shopping cart to my Tesla. This is why this stock is worth 1.6 trillion, because after you have the feeling that you have an FSD, and I've had 14.2 for a month, you start thinking everything should be autonomous. Like, it was actually ridiculous. Like, I literally had to check myself. The shopping cart almost freaking ran into another car. I was like, what am I doing, bro? Like, this is not, there's no autonomous shopping cart feature. It's a freaking shopping cart. So AI is changing our lives. And I think the street is getting more and more bullish to pull forward the growth expectations, just given how good the product is becoming. And you know, FSD is like the literal first real world use case of AI at scale. All right, here we go. 499. Let's see if that's on deck. 499 resistance exactly is 52,000 shares. 52,000 shares on the day. Palantir 197. Wow, Grab really moving. 6.5. I didn't see any headline this morning on Grab either. It's like, I mean, there's probably a culmination of stuff over the past couple of weeks, but nothing immediate today, I think, that I could easily point to for causing that move. Tesla right there, lost 498.80. She's trying to get back there again. This is where momentum, I mean, if she gets rejected here, I think it's going to take a while for us to build up this momentum again. So right now is the perfect moment for it to really try. Nebius also moving. Dude, I love Nebius. I just like this company so much. I hate the volatility of it. Now, granted, the volatility is where the opportunities come in, but the volatility is in all the data center trades. But I really do think this thing is cheap. So I think next year, if the data center trade is intact, then Nebius should be a winner in the trade. Tesla 497.80 again, below 498. Rocket Lab still holding 75. Nebius at 183. S&P 683. VG's up 2%. Oscar's up a little bit. Netflix still down. I don't know why Netflix is there. That Paramount bid does not seem realistic. But I guess shareholders have to kind of consider it. Robinhood 122. Where's SoFi? Are we still holding 27.40, 27.48 on SoFi? And then Tesla is trying. Grab was upgraded today according to IBKR. I'll see if I can get some headlines, dude. I think it might just be an institution buying before the merger as well. Now, I don't know when the merger is going to be announced. It could be in months. It could be in weeks. But the framework for the merger to happen is in place. There's definitely no squeeze on Grab. I mean, there could be. There's just too many shares outstanding, I think, for there to be a squeeze. There's better chance of a squeeze on Rocket Lab than Grab. Tesla right there, 497. Let me check the short float on Rocket Lab right now. I think it's above 10%. Rocket Lab short float is 9.3. Okay, so Rocket Lab doesn't have a lot of shares outstanding. Grab is 7.7. And then Tesla, I think it's under 2%. Tesla short float is, 3.2. Tesla still has 3% of shares sold short. Is Trump talking today? Are we getting a Trump announcement today? That could be something to watch out for at 4:30. Again, we talked about the NVIDIA shipping Bitmine news, or NVIDIA is shipping chips. And we talked about Bitmine up 3% as well, based on acquiring 3.37% of ETH. 497 on Tessie. Large announcement at 4:30. This Grab headline is last week's news. This was the robotics company they acquired. So that was last week. Oh, with Hexath. Okay, so it's going to be a Department of... Okay, maybe this is our Venezuela news. People have been waiting for clarity on this for a while. If he's with Hexath, it might be that. Gold and silver, by the way, silver now 69, has not pushed 70. But maybe you're going to see 70 today. For silver, let's see what else we have. 496. All right, Tesla getting rejected at 498, so she's going to need a little bit more help. S&P at 684. Rocket Lab still holding 75. NVIDIA up 2. Grab up 7. Then Palantir 197. Meta is very impressive today as well, because this one's been stuck for a while. So the fact that this one's moving is also good. Hexath's going to be making a shipbuilding announcement on Monday, as per the White House. Trump will be with the Secretary of War and with the Secretary of the Navy. Palantir just got a massive shipbuilding contract with the Navy. I mean, who knows? Maybe Palantir is involved in that announcement, or is even referenced. It's $450 million over 2 years that Palantir got. 197 right there. Grab 528. She continues to move. S&P 684. Rocket Lab 7570. And then NVIDIA at 183.50. I did not say shipbuilding. I said shipbuilding. Okay. I said ship. I think. Probably sounded like shit, but 183.44 on NVIDIA. Wow. ASTS 81. Do we have any macro news today? I don't think we have a lot of data this week. I mean, we had a manufacturing index. Market doesn't care too much about that. Canada's PPI. Does anyone care about Canada's PPI? That came in at 0.9 versus 0.3 expected, but it's down from 1.7 the month before. So at least their PPI is going a little bit lower. We do have some treasury bill auctions today. 3-month and 6-month bill auctions later today. Why is everyone saying no? Canada is our friendly neighbor. Okay, we have to respect and care about Canada. Can't just act like Canada's not a thing. Broadcom 341, Nebius, wow, 6.9% on Nebius, dude. Iren is up 7, and then CoreWeave is up 3. All the data center names, all of them holding on. Each and every one of them. Bloomberg just dropped a bomb on Tesla. Why do they have to do it when it was trying to go for 500, dude? What's the stupid Bloomberg headline on Tesla? What could they possibly say right before 500? 15 people have died in crashes where Tesla doors wouldn't open. For years, people have lodged complaints about Tesla doors to U.S. regulators and social media after incidents ranging from the mundane to truly terrifying. With no official statistics, Bloomberg did its own analysis on the number of fatal crashes in the U.S. in which door functionality played a role. Okay. I don't know if that's enough to get the market to sell off Tesla. The funny thing about that is like they're look at that Tesla right here falling. They're using Tesla doors as a culprit of that article. The amount of crashes every day in regular internal combustion engine vehicles that happen, I would say far outpace the number of issues that Tesla has with its doors by a like 100x order of magnitude. And the number of times that a Tesla has saved someone because of FSD, which we've seen these videos all the time of like the Tesla just moving in the right direction and avoiding a fatal crash, is probably far greater than anything an internal combustion engine can do because it doesn't have any AI associated with it. So like those headlines you take with a grain of salt and completely dismiss. There's just not a lot of validity to them to say that the Tesla thesis for FSD is wrong if the doors don't open in the easiest way. 494 right here on Tesla, now 493 as that gets rejected at 498. I will say though, the doors are a little hard to open. Like I've had people try to come into my car and they're like, how the hell do you open this door? Like it's so weird. But is that a bear case for Tesla? No, it's just like, you got to get used to how the doors open. D-Wave up 12%. That one's getting some love. MicroStrategy's up 2.5. Bloom's up 3. Google's up a little bit. And then Eli Lilly also continues to go up on the day. All right. So you're seeing some of this momentum fade out a little bit, but at least we're holding some of the green, which is a good thing. Okay, let's see what else we got. Let's see what else. 10 a.m. So we'll see until 10:30 if we get any major reaction to the up or the downside. We talked about the SpaceX IPO potentially happening. You've got the Trump meeting coming out soon, or at 4:30. Ray Dalio did a podcast over the weekend, and he is actually relatively bullish on prediction markets as a new financial instrument. So we'll take a look at that clip in a second. By the way, I know a lot of our year-to-dates are not as pretty as they were on October 9th, but whatever your year-to-date is, it's probably better than Citadel at 9.3%.
As the year comes to a close, we're also learning what asset classes have underperformed. Wagers on natural gas fizzled this year, putting Citadel on track for its worst annual return since 2018. For more on this, let's bring in Nishant Kumar. He is chief correspondent covering hedge funds for Bloomberg News. So what can you tell us about what Citadel has been doing when it comes to natural gas and why things haven't worked out as well?
Yeah, sure. So commodities have been the big differentiator for Citadel over the years. While most of its multi-strategy hedge fund peers rely on traditional equities, rates, systematic trading for returns, Citadel really built a much deeper commodities platform, including in natural gas. And it has paid off for Citadel. For example, in 2022, they generated $8 billion from commodities trading. That was half of their total returns. Same story the next 2 years. They generated $4 billion each in 2023 and 2024. Again, half of their profits. So that edge really helps Citadel pull away from rivals. But, it cuts both ways. When commodities cool, as they did in case of Citadel this year, the drag on performance is far more visible. But let me add here, like Citadel is still heading for its 17th straight year of gains. 9.3% looks modest by its own standards, but it's in line with what multi-strategy hedge fund peers have produced. It just looks modest because Citadel has been producing like just under 20% return on an annualized basis over the last more than 3 decades.
As a year.
So, I mean, look, overall, Citadel is an incredible hedge fund and they continue to put up results, but it's kind of crazy, right? In the year that we've had 9.3%. Now, obviously, multi-strategy hedge funds, that's kind of where they average at. But the reason it should have been probably closer to 15% is because natural gas. That trade just ended up not working for them this year, as we've seen nat gas prices and what they've done. So it is one of those things where, you know, you could have just gone long the S&P. You didn't have to put your money into some complicated hedge fund and then boom, you're up 16%. But nonetheless, if you go the hedge fund route, if there's some years where certain commodities outside of gold, silver, copper don't work like nat gas, then boom, you know, you end up on a little bit of a down year. Still a good year, just not a massive, massive year. So if you're beating 9%, you're beating Citadel. Even if you're not managing like $100 billion, but you're beating Citadel. Tesla, she's losing it. 492. Sellers are coming in. Downtrend potentially being formed. Grab right there, still holding 520. Robinhood 122. And then Broadcom at 341. Coinbase to acquire prediction market startup, The Clearing Company. Okay, makes sense. Looks like a lot of these guys are getting into the prediction markets game. This was Dalio over the weekend and his thoughts on prediction markets.
Do you have a view on prediction markets? Like, I know Shane.
I like him. Yeah.
Shane and Tariq are friends of mine. They both live in New York, Kalshi and Polymarket. In the future, does a lot of what is happening on stock markets move there? Because you can speculate on just about anything.
Mostly different events to bet on. And I think events affect companies. But
I mean, the audio on that sucks. So give me 1 second. Let me get a better audio right here. Okay, here we go.
And I think events affect companies, but they're two different things. So I would say it'll be something to speculate on, and it'd be something that smart people may use as a hedging device against owning an equity. Like if this event happens, that event that you can speculate on, and that might have an adverse effect to the stock I'm holding. There'll be all sorts of engineering and so on. I would imagine you'd see something like that happening. But we'll see, you know.
So you would use it like a leading indicator to make stock decisions?
I'm not a leading indicator. I wouldn't view it as a leading indicator. I mean, you might think about it. It gives you information, but it's a vehicle to speculate. It's a vehicle to use to hedge. It gives you some notion of what those who are speculating on it is. There are certain things that I'd like to try to get across.
Okay. So, I mean, look, ultimately, he continues to be bullish on the class, the financial instruments of prediction markets. The question is just going to be the long-term viability of them. But I do think for Hood in particular, if crypto volumes come in light over Q4, which I don't know how crypto volumes do better than last year. Unfortunately, I mean, Bitcoin and Ethereum have just been flat. Like if Bitcoin was tanking, I would say crypto volumes would be good because at least people are selling to the downside and Robinhood makes a spread on that. And if Bitcoin was going up, I would say, but like it's just been stuck around 87 to 90. Same thing with Ethereum. So we already saw November decline from October. October was good, but it wasn't great. And so December, I think I expect more of the same, just like a natural decline, which is normal. And maybe prediction markets are going to be the hedge to generate that revenue, even if crypto goes down. So that's going to be one thing to watch out for Hood going into Q4. S&P 500 right there at 683. I also released my interview with Shiv Verma, who's the incoming CFO of Robinhood. And so that one is on the channel, so people can watch that as well. I think he's a really cool guy, and you know he goes deep with Vlad, 7 years in the trenches. So he really explained kind of how they've been able to create the company they've created, but also how they think about operating leverage and growth and just like their overall pricing philosophies for how Robinhood is the way it is today. NVIDIA right there, 183.50. BM&R still up 3%. Oracle got rejected at 197, now at 195. Oracle goes down. Broadcom as well. Still green, but down from at the highest levels at 346. Don't get me started about this question, because a lot of you guys got mad last time I gave my thoughts on the interviewer. I actually watched that podcast over the weekend. I have my thoughts. I don't know if people want to hear them, but let's just say there are certain moments in the interview where, I'm not even going to say it. But I have my thoughts. I think Dalio did a great job. I'll say that. I think Dalio did a great job. It feels like I have beef with this guy. I don't have beef with the guy. I'm not going to say my thoughts. I think Dalio did a great job, though. Bitcoin right there, 90.1. Palantir at 196. All right, let's see some of these AI headlines and what else we're looking at here. Treasury yields still continue to go high. They're not freaking slowing down. The Japanese bonds, I feel like, are underappreciated. That story, that thing getting up to 2% for the year. But I mean, so far it's not having a meaningful effect on the equity markets. Definitely not on crypto. Here's a question I want to ask as well in the chat. So we said green or red. Most of you guys said green. Here's the better question, I think, to ask, which is, do we Santa rally? And the way I define Santa rally is, well, let's just say it like this. Do we see S&P 695? I think 695 is, like, anything below that is not a Santa rally. Can we agree on that? Because we hit 690 already 2 weeks ago. So it's like just getting back to level is not a Santa rally. We're at 683. So 695 minus 683 at 1.7%. So, all right, so call it 692, 693. You get my point, right? Like, do we get a 1.5% move from these levels, which is historically what the S&P 500 does? Because if we don't, I don't think we could say it's a Santa rally. It's a good end of year little move, but it's not that rally towards end of year. Now, 7,000 obviously would be the dream that all of us are looking for, but that is the question. Based on some of the price action you've seen today, Monday, December 22nd, do you still feel confident we get the Santa rally? And the price action today is good, but it's not great. I mean, Tesla teasing us up to 498, back to 489. It could get back there in a couple hours, but it's not the most exciting price action. S&P, I mean, it's green, but it's pretty much at the levels it was at all of last week. And then NVIDIA, I think it's going to be hard for the S&P to move 7,000 unless NVIDIA breaks out. It's like the chicken or the egg. Which one goes first? Does the S&P move and that makes NVIDIA move, or does NVIDIA move and that makes the S&P move? But I think one has to make the move by end of year. CoreWeave up 5%. Yep. Data center is still holding on. Steve thinks 7,000 above. Yeah, Steve still believes 7,000 and above. Which, look, if we get a rally, I feel like it's inevitable. We kind of just bust through that. We have to see if we get there. Chicago Fed National Activity Index increased to negative 0.21 in September from negative 0.31, suggesting economic growth increased. This index is a weighted average of 85 indicators. Okay, so you have some growth momentum continuing to stay strong. Another thing that we got last week, which also I think pumped us up on Friday, is consumer sentiment. We're at the lowest levels in about 10 years. So the index stood 11 points higher in 1980. This is when inflation was 13.5%. And the U.S. consumer sentiment assessment of current economic conditions has declined to 50.4. So this is basically the lowest level in the modern era, basically in the past 30 years. Even with that, inflation expectations also came down dramatically. Now, the market was expecting it to be even worse, which is why Friday we pumped. But the question then becomes, can we get this consumer indicator to go up going into the new year? Now, if it doesn't go up, that's not necessarily bearish, because that means we're probably going to get ready for another rate cut, which right now is a probability of 19%. Because if consumers are feeling pessimistic about the economy and they're not spending and disposable income's going down, that means naturally you have your deflationary hedge coming through as people spend less money. And AI in and of itself is deflationary because the cost of goods will come down. But also if it increases layoffs, then obviously people are going to spending less money. So the idea that we get those rate cuts going into next year way more than the ones projected, which I think the Fed is projecting one cut of 2026, seems very likely. But the way we get there might be a bit different. But I don't think consumer sentiment being low is necessarily the worst thing in the world. Clean Spark moving up a little bit. Yes. Grab still holding 520. Gold and silver miners. So my uncle sold silver, by the way. He sold it like $20 ago. So he made some good money on it, but he's mad now because he wished he had held on to it. 68.64 on silver. Gold at 4,400. Now he's held on to his copper, which has done really well. But he did sell out of silver a little too early. For the people that are still in silver, you know, it's been doing well. It's been doing very well. Chris says, take a look at light. I have no idea what this one is. It's up 300% year to date, dude. Goodness gracious. Lumentum Holdings. Is this another space name? Why do I feel like this is a space name? It feels like a space name. 300% year to date. 345% year to date. Okay. So Simon says I'm up 450% on light. AI chip name, Photonics. Oh, that's probably, dude. It's. I mean, there's a couple of those Photonics names that have taken off massively over the past couple of weeks. The Chinese IPO of, I forgot the name, Meta X is up 700%. You're starting to see a lot more excitement for new chip names, which is kind of hilarious because it's like the market's not willing to give NVIDIA a higher premium, but all these new names that are popping out. I told you guys about the startup that raised $450 million at a $4 billion valuation last week as well. It's a new chip name competing with NVIDIA in the United States. And we talk about when is NVIDIA's cycle over, and then you got all these companies that are continuously ramping up the ecosystem for chips. And I feel like that goes back to NVIDIA. Yeah, Poet's one of those Photonics names that has definitely caught a bid as well. Look at that, up 11% on the day. This one's had a pretty good year as well. We talked about this back in May of 2024, but didn't look that deep into it. This one's up about 90% over the past 6 months as well. Okay, let's get a little bit of some market coverage, and then we'll try to see what other headlines we have. Thoughts on Uber? I think Uber's cheap objectively. The problem is Uber's narrative has to deal with Tesla. Uber's up 4% on the day. Tesla just went down. Look, I think the robotaxi is far from becoming a real reality to the point where it's producing massive cash flow for Tesla. And Uber is producing amazing amounts of free cash flow, even though they missed on EBITDA last quarter. The problem is, again, the market's made up of narratives. And right now the narrative is that Uber's dead when I think it should be a platform that connects autonomous vehicles to drivers. But if you got the market thinking that's not the case, that's why Uber ends up getting discounted.
Still going to be with us. Do we want a market that broadens more from the mega cap dominance? Have we already had a market that's broader than it's been given credit for? I think in some respects it is. The eco-weighted S&P is up like 10% this year. So it hasn't just been those 7 stocks. The other piece of it is we're going to get a lot of capital raised next year, even more than we had this year. And it's going to probably have to happen more from public investors. So all the IPOs we have waiting, the AI trade is very hungry. The debt markets are definitely being taxed by what they're having to deliver for that. So is that going to create a shift in the supply-demand imbalance, especially because share buybacks are expected not to go up next year because all the big companies that buy back a lot of stock are plowing it into data centers. The final point I've been pointing to is Bitcoin and what, if anything, it's telling us. With its deep underperformance, it's no longer been linked very closely with kind of risk appetites in tech. Is that telling us that maybe the bloom is off in terms of the speculative energy in Bitcoin, especially when gold and silver are making these new highs? Or is it just kind of a non sequitur and we're just digesting a huge move? So all those things I think are in the mix in terms of what could be a sort of tactical swing factors along the way next year.
Yeah, and it is interesting because you are seeing, and some folks have pointed this out with Bitcoin, maybe some rotation into other types of cryptocurrencies as you see things like stable coins and blockchain technology come into fintech in a bigger, broader way this year. Commodities, what is that telling us? And I realize oil's up a little bit with all the Venezuela blockade stuff today, but ex-oil commodities have had a torrid run this year. You've been talking about the reflation trade.
I think that's what it's telling us, that globally you do have the conditions in place for a little bit of a quickening of growth. It does seem as if you also have some stockpiling on top of that. And in general, diversifying assets that are not called government bonds have been doing well. I think that's one of the lessons of what's happening in metals, as well as everything else. And if anything, the weakness in oil, point to point this year, has understated the strength in commodities, as you say. So, whether that...
And that's why Citadel didn't make as much money off nat gas, but if you've been trading any other commodities, they've done pretty well. Here was Moran this morning as well, talking about the CPI that we got last week.
Speech at Columbia, you nodded to the fact that recessions are inevitable. Fed's job is to kind of forestall them as much as they can. Policymakers' jobs are that. I'm very curious, when you look at the labor market in particular, the rise that we've seen in the unemployment rate, that's kind of rise we've seen customarily before recessions. How do you assess the risk of there being a recession here in the near term when you look at the labor market, for instance?
So I don't see a recession in the near term, in part because we are adjusting our policy rate by lowering it, which is appropriate. My view, as I've described, is that a variety of shocks that hit the economy, including changes to the population growth rate due to changes in the border policy, have pushed what we call the neutral rate down, and that policy needs to adjust downward to reflect that downward shift in neutral. If we don't adjust policy down, then I think that we do run risks of rising recessions. I don't think it's too late to prevent that, and so I think it's important that we keep on adjusting our policy rate down. But at the moment, it's not my base case, in part because I think that we ultimately will end up continuing to adjust interest rates down.
So again, the argument for avoiding a recession, at least from some of the Fed from some of the Fed speakers and Fed governors, are lower rates. And I think the broader question is going to be, okay, are we lowering rates for a good reason, or are we lowering rates because we're seeing bad things happen? And so far, given how CPI turned out last week, I mean, again, unless the data is completely fake, that CPI shows us that we should be lowering rates at least another 25 bips going into the early part of next year. Maybe not 50, but definitely 25. Combined with the labor market data that we saw, unemployment now at 4.6%. Pound here losing a lot of its momentum as well today, 198 down to 195. But if we get economic data next year that suggests something is the opposite and hinting more towards a recession, then that would be a different reason to cut rates. Tesla, by the way, back into the 480s, was not able to crack 498. It is good that it got there today. Just wasn't able to crack it. It proves that December 17th was not the local top like it was last year. So it broke through those levels, which was important. CoreWeave up 4%, Palantir up 0.78, ASTS up 7, SoFi 27.40, Rocket Lab 75.30. Rocket Lab still holding $75. Warren Buffett is entering his final full week as CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. It's kind of wild, dude. It's like LeBron leaving the league. I mean, Buffett's been part of the markets for past, 6-7 decades? Oh my goodness. I didn't mean to do that. Why do those two numbers go together so often? Like, it's kind of ridiculous how often those numbers come together. But it's been around for a long time. And we're going to have to deal with a stock market that does not have the influence of Warren Buffett anymore, which is pretty crazy. The quantum names are moving. Yes, IONQ getting some love as well. Where's IONQ? There it is. 5274 up 8.3%. Yeah, all the quantum names getting some excitement here. There was actually someone at the event last night, and he's like deep into tech and AI. So we started talking for a bit. And he was like, the biggest thing I think that we have to worry about is quantum. And he was like, I think quantum's a thing. He's like, I think it's coming out. He's a CTO for one of these consulting tech companies in New York City. And he was like, we said quantum. He actually was one of the people that authored McKinsey's quantum report 5 years ago. Or I think it was 2.5 years ago. And he was basically like, quantum's going to be a thing. And he thinks quantum is actually the bigger threat to NVIDIA over ASICs or Broadcom or all these custom TPUs or anything. He's like, no, it's more has to do with quantum. I was like, what does that mean for Bitcoin? He was like, Bitcoin's screwed too if quantum doesn't completely get rid of the cryptography of it. So now he does think it's still going to be far away. I mean, he doesn't think it's that far away, but he thinks it's far away enough to the point where, like, in the short term, nothing's going to affect NVIDIA. But he definitely thinks that it's something to pay attention to. And Dan Ives' thesis for quantum last week when he pitched those names is China, and the U.S. will be making an investment to counteract China. Which maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but that is at least his argument for why the quantum names will catch a bid. Speaking of the U.S. making investments, you did have Senator McCormick today push back on all the U.S. involvement in companies and said, well, maybe we need to stop mixing state and business as much.
Andrew has been highlighting this. You're a Republican, a capitalist, a business guy. Is anything that you've seen President Trump do in terms of statism, is it similar to what happens in China? Is it similar to a socialist creep where the government is too involved in the means of production, or is it?
Well, I think it's a slippery slope when you get the government more and more involved in the economy.
Are we slipping?
Yeah,
with
what I've said is
Trump?
number one. So if you look at some of these industries that are so crucial to our economic security, our national security, semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, rare metals, magnets, we need the government's involvement. We become dependent on China. We need to find ways to bring the investment to the United States and guide that policy. So I've been supportive of things like that. But we can only do that in cases where it's really critical to our national security, not as a matter of economic policy. And the principles that should guide us here are principles that we as Republicans should be able to live with if the other team was in the White House or in the majority. So I do think we got to be careful that we don't slide down that slippery slope. I think the areas that the president has focused on, the things like steel, like semiconductors, like pharmaceuticals, are really critical. And we learned during COVID that when those things are in the hands of the Chinese or other countries, that we're going to be dependent. So I do think we needed the government's engagement, but I agree with you. We need to be careful. It's a slippery slope. We don't want the government involved by and large. And it's the old Reagan line, the scariest words you could ever hear is, I'm here from the government and I'm here to help you. We don't need too much help.
Now, again, the Trump administration looks like they want to continue enforcing this government version of capitalism. I mean, the fact that NVIDIA has to give up 25% of their chip revenues just goes to show how much they care about it. Question is, will it work out in the long term? And I mean, if Intel has a turnaround, maybe it does. If a lot of these rare earth companies that the U.S. took stakes in have turnaround, then maybe it does. But it is definitely going to be one of those broader contentious topics, I think, going into the end of the year for 2026 as well. Zeta's up 1.6, Reddit's at 235, Oscar's at 15, PayPal's at 60, Shopify at 170. Don't have a Trump tweet. Don't have a Trump tweet right now. AMD still making a move. Let me pull this up as well. There's a couple other charts I wanted to show right here. Oh yeah, this thing was kind of crazy yesterday. So Vegas needs CES because Vegas has been having a hard time. Take a look at this. Visits to the city are off more than 8% this year, an unprecedented decline outside of recessions and the pandemic. And this is what I noticed when I went to the Hood event in Vegas. It was really felt dead. Maybe it was September and that's why, but like you are not seeing the amount of people go to Vegas that should be going to Vegas. So, I mean, 2026, I think is another sort of trend in 2026 is going to be, hey, like, is the consumer back? And again, all those retailer earnings we got last week showed me that the consumer is definitely not dead and they're willing to spend. The question is, how much are they willing to spend, especially on things like experiences and going out, vacations, etc. But I think time will tell to see if this plays out. Ed Yardeni, he continues to be on this riff about the Mag 7 are not going to be the winners next year, and it's going to be the S&P 493.
Some individual, obviously. We just had a technical analyst on, Christopher Rohn, who was talking technically about why he's seeing it. Did you see him? Because it's fun.
Understand that the real beneficiaries of AI are going to be what I call the impressive 493.
Causing you to actually make a change in a. We're not going to be able to we're not going to be able to watch your performance on a 15-year basis. That's asking too. Maybe we can. I plan on it. Actually, what will that be? Yeah, when we're looking back.
Yeah,
But you actually, and Becky made note of that, how significant it was that you had been overweight tech, but it's so overweight now. It's hard to get. It's hard to get more overweight than it already is.
If you take information technology and communication services in the S&P 500, they're 45% of the market cap of the entire index. And so if you tell people overweight that, what are you telling them, like 50, 55, 60? I mean, that's not even close to what their impact is in the overall economy.
Right.
And the real beneficiaries are going to be everybody else that uses AI and whatever other technologies they come up with.
I also thought it was interesting that you said that lower interest rates don't necessarily help.
I don't know if I agree with it, dude. I don't know if I agree with this being the year, 2026, that the Mag 7 fall off. By the way, Sci-Do Space up 115%. If this doesn't show you the space trade is here, I don't know what does. Now, this is also scary, because just because a company that has space in its name is pumping for the pure fact that it has space in its name is not the thing you really want to see during these runs. But it's absolutely happening. Sci-Do Space. I don't even know. Has anyone heard of this Sci-Do Space? Aerospace and defense company. I mean, they got a contract today. Maybe that contract's helping, but I feel like the space part of their ticker is helping them get more excited, or helping people get more excited for them. Yeah, they have news. Is it 112% up on the day newsworthy? I mean, it's basically a small cap. And forget small cap. It's a micro cap. It was worth $30 million this morning. Now it's worth $85 million. I mean, government contracts can move a stock, but like that type of a move feels a bit more oriented in the broader ecosystem of the space trade. But it's okay. I mean, like, look, we saw this happen with freaking C3 AI 2 years ago because they had AI in the name. Now, C3 AI ended up being just a crappy company. I have no idea about Sci-Do Space. They might be a really good company. But people are trying to play space in every way. Look at the old-time chart. Wow. It's been through multiple reverse splits. Look at that. Yeah. I mean, again, just looking at the chart, this thing was $3,000 a share in 2021. Of course, it IPO'd in 2021. Now it's at $2.40. Yeah, some of these can get a little scary. It's hard to chase these names. But that has been Black Sky. That's another one. This has always been a geospatial intelligence play. It was actually pretty crucial in Ukraine back in 2022. Palantir used to have a stake in these guys. There you go. That's up 17% on the day. Okay, let's see what else we got. Overall, are we holding up? S&P is still green. 683. Going back to Yardeni, yeah, I mean, who agrees with him? Do you really think the 493 next year outperformed the Mag 7? Because every time I think we want to say the other guys catch up, you just remember how much cash flow and profitability the Mag 7 have. Now, granted, it's been 3 years of nothing but green, so for them to take a breather would be normal. But like Meta's already taken a pretty ugly breather. So is Microsoft. Microsoft was pushing 560. Now it's at 484. Like the good thing about this little correction we've had over the past month is that a lot of these stocks are not trading at euphoric levels. So if we have a further drawdown in January for whatever reason, I mean, those would legitimately be amazing dips. Like if Meta or if any of these Mag 7 fell another 10%, they're already down. Like NVIDIA's down 20% from its highs. Meta, I think, is down like 15%. Microsoft, same, about 17%. So another 10% hit on all those names, I just think they become incredibly attractive, which also makes it harder for them to get that 10% hit if they're already down so much. The big get bigger. The big get bigger. I'm sure some of the 493 will. Well, that's the question, right? Like, I mean, this chart I thought was pretty interesting over the weekend on the concentration. So shout out to Dustin Dollars. This was his X account. I'll put the link right here in the chat. But he made this chart, and I thought it was incredible to look at that. Companies 1 through 10 in the S&P 500 were 40% of the gains this year on the S&P. Or sorry, not the gains, but the actual earnings. So when you're investing in the S&P, half of your invested capital basically goes into 20 companies. And so Ed Yardeni is saying all these other parts of the pie are going to be better than the orange part and the blue part, as those are realistically the blue part, which is companies 1 through 10. That's your max 7, which is 40.7%. I'm like, yeah, that's possible. But I think those max 7 would have to like legit not have good earnings next year. And Apple's already said Q4 is going to be amazing. Google's not slowing down. The SpaceX IPO is going to be big for Google. Meta, I am wary about because they could have good earnings on the ads business, but maybe, the AI. Like, as much as we love Meta, I think we are forgetting the reason this stock fell had nothing to do with the taxes, nothing to do with the ads business, had everything to do with the market having zero idea why Zucks is spending this much money. And basically saying, until you prove why you're spending this much money, we're not going to give you the premium. Does Zucks prove in the first 2 quarters of the year why he's spending this much CapEx? And my gut tells me no, to be honest. He will eventually prove it. But unless he comes out with a cloud or something brand new from a consumer-facing perspective, it's going to be the ads. That's it. And I just really wonder if the market will give him the benefit of the doubt, especially if he increases CapEx guidance. Tesla's not going to grow earnings until the end of the year. So, I mean, that could be one thing that hurts Tesla. But everyone else, Amazon, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Google, they should be fine. Even Apple. Amazon can have a blow-off top rally to 300. I agree with Amazon. Again, still trading at the lowest EV to EBITDA across the entire Max 7 and in its like 10-year history. So I do think Amazon, realistically, Amazon and NVIDIA are my choices next year. If I had to boil it down to 2, it's Amazon and NVIDIA. Although I think Meta could outperform Amazon, but there's like a little bit less clarity with Meta versus Amazon. Yeah, SpaceX is good for Google because they own 9%. So when SpaceX goes public, I don't know if Google is going to sell into that IPO. They might be one of the people that uses the stock market for liquidity. I feel like Google will. I think Sundar is going to be like, dude, we've been in SpaceX for freaking 15 years. Like, we might as well take our profits here. But then again, maybe Sundar is super bullish on these data centers in space, and maybe he wants to collaborate with SpaceX, and maybe holding on to the equity makes more sense. But someone's going to have to sell for it to be offered to the public. Google might be one of the people that decide to take some of their profits. Reminds me of 2021. Okay, so this is another question that's been happening over the weekend, which is, does this market feel like 2021 going into 2022? 2021, we declined in November, then we spiked in December, then we ultra spiked in January, and then it ended into a disaster in 2022. And a lot of people are saying it feels like that. At least that was the sentiment I was reading over the weekend. The problem is we were hiking rates in 2022. We were also hiking rates in 2018, which were 2 midterm years where the market was basically down 20%. Next year, we're not going to be hiking. And so that is one of those fundamental paradigmatic shifts that changes the midterm historical cycle lining up with the rate hike cycle, at least in modern history, which I think helps us avoid the general midterm pain. But it's also like you can't avoid the fact that there's going to be some volatility from the midterm years just because the general economic uncertainty, Republicans and Democrats fighting, all that stuff ends up creating weakness in the market. No, it feels like 2025 going into 2026. See, that's the thing, bro. 2025 kind of broke a lot of conventional norms as well. So it's hard to compare it historically as well. A lot of other people are saying that we're still in 97, 98 right now, which, means that we have a couple of years left of this really playing out. And then you got other people saying this is close to 2000. It's going to have to be defined in the earnings next year. I really do. I really do think that's going to be the basis for which part of the cycle we get to decide we're in. And I think crypto is going to give us our first hint of, if we are in or 2000. Someone who thinks that tech stocks will go up 20% next year. Here's Dan Ives. He is unwavering on his belief that we continue to go up.
One of the things really pressuring the tech trade, also some concerns about the AI build out. Are you saying Microsoft is immune to those concerns?
Look, I get the concerns, Frank, but I mean, the reality is all of our checks are showing, I mean, demand and supply is what, 12 to 1, you know, when it comes to NVIDIA chips. The hyperscale build out, only 3% of US companies have gone down the AI path. I think when it looks to valuation, I think investors are underestimating the growth. I think street numbers are underestimated here anywhere from 15 to 20% for 2026. And that's really the call as it plays out. I get the white knuckle moments now, and the Bears sort of winning the last few weeks. They're not going to win next year. I think tech stocks are up 20-25% in 2026.
All right. So it's kind of interesting that you're very bullish on Azure, but also the Copilot business. Have you seen these reports related to Salesforce where they're kind of telling people, Agentforce, it may actually work better if you don't use Gen AI? Is that a concern that we're starting to see companies maybe not seeing the results from AI that they thought they would initially, and whether or not it's a long-term narrative, we don't know yet. That's a longer-term story. But in the short term, could that possibly shake investor confidence in the AI trade, specifically when we're looking?
Okay, we'll go back to that, but we are going red, 10:30 on time. SoFi about to be red, Palantir red, Robinhood went red, NVIDIA barely holding on, Broadcom goes red, Tesla's $1 away from going red. The space names are holding up. Grab's at least holding 5. Hood from 124.50 to 121. This is the 4th day in a row that it's done that. Nebius, I don't think it's going back to 78, but it is losing 95, still up at 92 on the day. Yeah, who would have thought? Who would have? Dude, this is legit three weeks in a row of this happening. And then by the end of the day, it either is flat or gets a little bit to the highs of the morning or ends up going red. D-Wave up 13%. The quantum name's getting some love. Bloom Energy up 1%. But it's almost comical at this point how predictable it is. Like if you're a trader and you just look at patterns, I mean, you've got to be loving this. It's almost like you know every day at what time to go long or short on these names. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a full-on rug pull. Rug pull is like Hood goes to like 110 or, you know, NVIDIA goes back to 170 or something. That is more ruggish to me. This is just momentum that can't hold on, which has been the theme literally for the past 3 weeks. And usually there's a headline to accompany it. For the past 2 weeks, we've had the Oracle OpenAI headlines today. I don't think there's any crazy headline, but it's just, I guess the headline is we're getting into Christmas soon and not many people are trading. But the people that are trading are not holding. And that's what makes going into next year a lot more interesting. Like, can we actually have a good end of year run? Where was the let me pull up the S&P for 2024. So S&P in December of 2024. So December 20th, we were at 591. And we were at 607 on December 6th. We bottomed at 591. So we did peak in early December of 2024. We passed 6,000 on the S&P. And then we ended the year at around 595. So it wasn't really a Santa rally last year either because we had already made a big move on December 5th. And even though we got a rate cut, I think December 18th, we still weren't able to, you know, bust through all-time highs. So we got to 690 on this market. Yeah, December 11th. I mean, if that was your peak, we're not that far away. But if we close at these levels, it would be very similar to 2024. If we get above that, then that potentially gives us the run to 7,000. Sorry, yeah, 586 was your 2024 close. The markets always dump on Monday, though. Yeah, that's fair. And it is a Monday with low volume. But some of these stocks aren't showing low volume. I mean, Grab, lots of volume is coming in. Palantir, lots of volume is coming in. SoFi just goes red, 27.25. Dude, SoFi was pushing $28 last night. So that's some of these names that are not able to hold on. S&P 683.40. Gold and silver are indeed holding up. That is correct. Is Meta holding 670? Wow. Losing all of it. 660. Dude, this just makes people not want to trade or not want to buy into strength because they just can't trust it. They just can't trust some of these moves right now. All right, here's back to Dan Ives.
Looking at companies like Microsoft.
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, I get that with like a name like Palantir. I mean, those customers' ROI is way accelerated ahead of what they ever expected. So I think it depends on the use cases when it comes to what we're seeing with Salesforce, Mongo, Snowflake. Look, it's an arms race playing out, and you're going to need to see certain customers see the ROI. We talk about 2026 has to be the year of monetization when it comes to AI, and I think we're going to see that, and I think that's why it takes the next step. Besides, obviously, like names like robotics, autonomous, and true, right? I think AI coming to the consumer.
All right. I don't know if you saw over the weekend, Bernstein saying that NVIDIA is the cheapest it's been in a while and that at 25 times forward earnings, it's a pretty good deal right now. Do you agree with that take, that the fact that the place we're seeing NVIDIA at right now with the bullishness that you have, this is a bargain right now?
250 to 275 is what I see for NVIDIA. I mean, frankly, look, there's one chip in the world fueling the AI revolution. It's led by the godfather of AI, Jensen, right? And I think what we see here, investors, you're not even factoring in what's going to happen in the China market as they get further into that, and that's our expectations. But look, they're playing a different game. They're 4 to 5 years ahead of anyone else in the market. And that's why I think this is a stock that's going to have a massive 2026, and numbers are going to dictate it. And I think anytime you see sell-offs in this, golden buying opportunities, in our opinion.
All right.
Some news on AI laws coming into place today as well.
Hey, Mike. Well, yeah, look, major AI companies, they're getting ready for that California law on AI safety to begin to go into effect in just a few weeks. Companies with revenues of over $500 million, they would need to create a framework showing how they manage severe risks that their most powerful models could pose. And severe risks is defined as causing over $1 billion in damage or 50 plus deaths or serious injuries. Companies are also going to need to start reporting events that pose major risks, like a system being hacked, and face fines of up to $1 million if they fail to report. Now, the law's implementation, of course, comes as President Trump signed an executive order meant to discourage states from implementing AI laws, arguing that a patchwork of laws is going to limit AI companies' ability to innovate and create new models. But that hasn't stopped California. At least one AI company, Anthropic, has already released their compliance framework, which, according to the company, describes how we assess and mitigate cyber offense, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats, as well as the risks of AI sabotage and loss of control for our frontier models. Now, California's bill is the first frontier risk bill to go into effect, but it's certainly not the only one. On Friday, New York Governor Kathy Hochul signed an even stricter bill into law. Companies would only have 3 days to report critical safety incidents, and fines would begin at $1 million. And we know from what we've seen in state legislatures this last time, guys, we can be expecting many more state AI laws to come, even with the executive order that we've got from Washington, D.C. Guys?
That's exactly where I'm going with you, Emily, is how does the executive order change any of this, shape any of this? And perhaps just as importantly, is Congress working on anything from a federal and national level?
I mean, Sarah, I'll start with the second one first. No, I mean, at this point, we've heard Congress talk about wanting to do something, but as far as a piece of legislation that really has the momentum to address a lot of these issues and pass into law, we haven't seen anything yet. In terms of exactly how this is going to impact things, remember, the executive order didn't outright ban state laws. It basically gave the Justice Department the ability to go out and to litigate them, saying that if they impact interstate commerce, that's something that's supposed to be a federal role. So we'll have to keep an eye on exactly how the Justice Department responds to California's, New York's, any other state laws that we're seeing, and how the courts wind up deciding on that.
The AI regulatory framework going into next year is going to be very important because you've got a lot of people on the other side of AI. We talked about this last week with Bernie and AOC that, I mean, Bernie is saying that we need to have a moratorium on growth for AI because of how problematic it could be for the labor market. NVIDIA right there at 1.37%. Bitcoin just lost 90 as well, 89.4. And so these AI safety laws, right? I think they're gonna be a contentious topic going into the end of next year. That's why I think Trump was trying to set that federal standard so that the state laws can't necessarily bypass AI progress. He's worried about, the economy, and AI is key to the economy, making sure that economic momentum continues. But then you've got a lot of people on the left saying, well, what about the labor market? Which, by the way, I think everyone's concerned about AI taking away jobs. The guy I was talking to last night, by the way, who's like deep into tech and AI and quantum and all that stuff, he's convinced that every job is gone. I mean, he's like, my job's gonna be gone, your job's gonna be gone. He's like, AI will get so every job is gone. And he wasn't even saying it from a doomeristic perspective. He was saying it from a logical perspective. He was like, there's just no way a lot of these jobs survive. And so that is a concern I think Democrats and Republicans are going to care about. But legislatively, are we actually going to do anything about it? I don't know. Are we actually going to put a law in place that says you can't fire Amazon workers and replace them with robots? I don't know. But I think it's going to be one of the things that potentially is a midterm talking point. And you might get some support from people that feel that one side of the party might protect their jobs versus doesn't. Erwin says, I want AI to take my job so bad because I hate it. Yeah, I'm sure some people agree with that as well. But it's definitely going to be something we can't ignore. Like, again, over the weekend, even the all-in guys were saying AOC has a chance. And I think people are way too quick to say AOC doesn't have a chance. Like, do I think she's going to beat JD Vance? No. If I had to pick right now, I think JD Vance probably wins. But the idea that she doesn't have a chance is hard to imagine, especially given the fact that there are plenty of people that hate capitalism, and they hate AI. And if she runs on, hey, we're going to take from the rich and we're going to stop AI progress so that the rich can't get richer, I mean, you've got a part of the country that's going to vote for that. Like, there's going to be a lot of people that probably don't like that, but it's not going to be like it's not close, in my opinion. So, I mean, everyone said Trump couldn't win in 2016. After Trump's win, I think we all have to realize it's hard to completely say no one has a chance, especially if they have a populist idea and if they have a reasonably strong way of marketing that idea, which, AOC has like 20 million followers. So she understands how to get people's attention. Fear and greed index. We're almost at greed, folks. So for everyone who's feeling like, market's down, it's like, that's not what the sentiment is saying. Sentiment is saying markets are doing great right now. And we're about to head into greed if we go even higher. Which, again, it's a little weird because some of these stuff, and now, can you be that upset if Rocket Lab's down from 77 to 74? Not really. Is 74 greedy on Rocket Lab? Probably, just like a lot of these prices are pretty greedy. But then you have names like Amazon that haven't moved. So again, it becomes a stock picker's market, but the broader sentiment is saying that we are not in extreme fear like we were back in November. And by the way, this index was pretty accurate in November. I mean, we were at 4 on extreme fear and greed, and that absolutely was the time to hammer the buy button on pretty much anything except Amazon. Even though I think Amazon got to like 212. So, but like Meta was at 585, Rocket Lab was at 38, Robinhood was at 105, NVIDIA was at 170. I mean, you had plenty of decent opportunities during that time. What else? Yeah, we almost skipped neutral on that as well. Where's the heat map? Let's see that. Financials are up. A little bit of tech is red. Everything else is up. We have a China update with Russia. What is this? Foreign Minister Lavrov and Venezuela Foreign Minister discussed their worries about Washington's increasing activities in the Caribbean Sea during a phone call. Okay, so China on Friday said, we don't like that the U.S. is getting involved in Venezuela. And today it looks like Russia also saying, we don't like that we're getting involved. I still don't know. Are we like getting into a war or something? Like what? I get it's about oil, but like, what exactly is happening here? I thought we would get some clarity on that national address that Trump did, and he ended up just doing a campaign speech. maybe today we'll get some more clarity with Pete Hegseth, but I still think it's rather unclear exactly what we're trying to do there. Crypto still down, Bitcoin below 90 right here. SoFi is behaving like PayPal. I think SoFi is coiling up. And again, SoFi is up 80% for the year. So, no one can be too upset if this one doesn't bust out by the end of the year. But I think it's coiling up. And I think some of that momentum carries into next year. Bitcoin right there, 89.5. Tesla trying for 490 again. But she lost it at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the day. 489 on Tessie. All right, let's see a couple of other headlines across the board. Retail sales we saw last week, those are relatively strong. Elon's pay package was restored as per Delaware Supreme Court laws. That was a really big deal on Friday, and that actually increased Elon's net worth to $750 billion, which is the most his net worth has ever been. So now $749 billion. He basically won the Supreme Court case in Delaware, along with the $1 trillion pay package he already has, and then you have SpaceX getting valued at a higher level. So now again, Elon's been on this riff about how money doesn't matter, so he doesn't care. But nonetheless, the general public is absolutely going to care. And I think that, Farzad was talking about this over the weekend. When Elon crosses $1 trillion, which is going to happen eventually, the public narrative about one person being worth $1 trillion is going to be bastardized in the media, because they're going to be using it as a way to say, like, this is the greediest form of capitalism and it's the worst thing ever. And I wonder what the retort is going to be, right? Because there's plenty of people in the investing community that understand he doesn't actually have that money. It's locked up in stock. And if he's worth $1 trillion, he's made a lot of trillions for a lot of other people. And so if he were to sell all that trillion and liquidate it, the stocks would crash. Or there's a lot of logic for why, it's a number on paper, but it's not actually that meaningful. But that number on paper is going to be very meaningful to people that already think that Elon is like the worst person in the world. So I wonder, and people can say, oh, well, it doesn't matter, but it kind of does. Like when you've got growing resentment in the country around income inequality, and then you see one guy's worth $1 trillion, I mean, you might have a political movement that starts to get a lot more steam and momentum off seeing something like that. So I do think that, even Amazon was talking about this, right? Amazon internal memos show that they have to remarket how they're going to be pushing the shift for robotics, because it's going to result in layoffs, and people are going to blame Amazon, the big greedy company that cares about profits for shareholders and shareholder returns more than their own workers. Now, they don't care about shareholder returns because I haven't seen any shareholder returns. But anyway, because Amazon stock just doesn't move. But the point is, like, they're going to have to market how they replace workers with robots. And I don't know if it's going to be the easiest thing in the world to do. By the way, Goldman Sachs, these are their top ideas for semis in 2026. NVIDIA, 250 target, Broadcom, 450 target, Cadence, that's chip design, 410 target, Microchip, 88 target, and then Applied Materials, 250 target. So these are your top names for Goldman Sachs going into 2026 for the semis. I wish Elon would do charitable things. Nobody can deny are subjectively good for everyone, seeing how money doesn't matter. I think Elon's talked about the idea of charity before a couple of years ago. I remember him talking about it. And his main thing is he thinks the allocation of capital through business is a better form of productivity than like donating to a nonprofit. And quite frankly, I really do agree with him. Like giving money to a nonprofit that has 17 layers of bureaucracy. And when you're Elon, who's probably been screwed a million times when he's put money into something, he probably doesn't trust the director of a nonprofit that tells him his money is going to be distributed. So he probably thinks, hey, if I make jobs, I make the world more productive, I get the cost of goods to come down, I make transportation, instead of paying $15 for an Uber, you can pay $5 for a robotaxi. Like that has a net positive impact on the world. People don't want to give him credit for that because it's not donating money to some charity. But I think that's his interpretation of how he should be using money. And he probably does donate, but we don't, see that much about it because I don't think he necessarily tweets about all of his charitable donations. But to your point, right? Like if he were to give $100 billion or something to some nonprofit, which by the way, Zucks did this with Facebook back in 2010. I remember he was on Oprah. My mom loved Oprah. He was on Oprah. He was like, yeah, we're giving $100 billion to some school district. I mean, he started to get a lot of credit because it's like, oh, look at this 25-year-old giving all this money. I think it was 100 million, not 100 billion. Yeah, it was 100 million at the time. It was 2010. But then again, I don't think Elon cares what people think enough to do something like that and get that type of attention. Red Cat is holding. Yes, Red Cat. A lot of the drone names. Look at that, 15% of the day, along with Ondas. It's incredible. Elon's entire mission is charitable. He employs over 150,000 people in the US. He's trying to save the human race to get us to Mars. He's trying to build a robot workforce since no one's having kids. Well, look, that last point you mentioned, going back to that ChatGPT video I showed you in the morning. Dude, if people stop having kids, we are absolutely going to need the robots because we will have a generation of people that need to be taken care of. You're already seeing this in Japan and no one to take care of them. And so one could argue, you know, getting us to a different planet is one thing, but getting the robots on this planet to take care of the potential lack of population we have, or repopulation, is definitely a big thing. But yeah, again, I agree with Austin right here. Mars is not going to resonate with normal people when they can't afford a house. That's fair. I mean, like if you're broke, if you're in a situation where things are not going for you and you're just like not getting the momentum you need in life, and then someone's talking about we need to go to Mars, like there's just no way in hell you're going to be excited about that. Because like, you know, living on this planet in and of itself is hard enough. Like the idea of going to another planet doesn't make sense. And that's what I mean by the marketing of Elon becoming a trillionaire. Like, how is the media actually going to frame that argument in a way that shows people that he doesn't actually have that money, even though he's worth that much? And the things he's focusing on are the reason he's got to $1 trillion, but they might not be the things that everyone cares about. NVIDIA, 183. She's sticking around. She's not breaking her high of day, but she's sticking around. 183. 183.74. Are there taxes on Mars? Can I bring my puppy? Dude, there's this amazing Instagram trend where like you take your dog. Have you guys seen this? And you pick up your dog and you put it towards a wall. And if the dog puts his paws out, the dog is smart. But if the dog doesn't, it's like the dog is dumb. And it's just so hilarious because there's a lot of dogs that are putting their paws out. But then there's other dogs that are just like, why are you pushing me near a wall? And they don't put their paws out and they have the cutest face. I'm saying this because my algorithm is filled with dogs because I really want a dog. But I know I can't freaking take care of a dog right now. But I want one. I did that with my cat. Yeah, it's a trend that's been going on. It's like adorable. She put her paw even when I did it with a mirror. There you go. I can't get a cat either, bro. First of all, I don't love cats. Even though a cat could take care of itself way better than a dog. But I'm like low-key scared of cats, dude. I know it sounds weird, but like there's something about cats that kind of, I don't know, dude. It's a feline, bro. It's like a lion. Like I had a cat when I was younger too. Maybe that experience affected me. And I'd just rather have a dog. Not hating on cats. Cats are great. It's not my cup of tea. I did that show with my girlfriend. She slapped me. Oh my gosh. That's hilarious. That's freaking hilarious. Admit needs a pet rock. That's fair. I do need a pet rock. Okay, what other news do we have? Or is that it? Are we done for the day? Wow, my camera legit dies. Boom. I guess we are done for the day. Alphabet just acquired a company. I guess we're not done for the day. Hold on, let me switch the camera. Who does Alphabet acquire? Intersect for $4.75 billion in cash. What the heck is Intersect? Google Intersect. $4.75 billion plus debt. Okay, where's Google stock? Google, that's down. What is Intersect? $5 billion. Wow, powering AI data centers at scale. Holy crap. Once again, the data center trade continues. Alphabet has agreed in a definitive agreement to acquire Intersect, which provides data centers and infrastructure solutions. The acquisition will enable more data center and generation capacity to come online. Intersect's existing operations in Texas and its in development in California will not be part of it. Intersect will help us expand new capacity, operate more nimbly, and build a new power generation in lockstep with new data center load and reimagine every energy solution to drive U.S. innovation and leadership, says Sundar. We look forward to welcoming Sheldon and the team. Intersect has always been focused on bringing innovation to the industry, and we look forward to accelerating as a part of Google, said Sheldon, the CEO. Modern infrastructure is the linchpin of American competitiveness in AI. We share Google's conviction that energy innovation and community investment are the pillars of what must come next. Well, of course, Google's dumping here. Or not dumping, but maybe not getting a lot of move because they're paying $5 billion. But I think that's bullish because they've done a deal with Cypher. They've done a deal with Wolf. They're now buying an entire, what it looks like is this looks like it looks like they're buying a data center. Looks like Intersect has a few data centers. I mean, I'm sure there's probably more to this business, but on their website, it looks like they do data centers, and they particularly focus on the energy part of it. And they just got a nice $5 billion buyout. So I ran Nebius all the way. Oh, here, I mean, that's the other thing. Dan Ives said Nebius is going to get acquired next year, which, I mean, if it does, I think what's $23 billion right now? Given all their equity stakes, I don't think they're going to get acquired. I don't think the founders want to get acquired, but the idea that this gets acquired for 40 billion, 50 billion is not crazy. Even though I think they feel there's a 100 billion opportunity here. Rocket Lab right here, still 76. But Google once again with the acquisitions. Yeah, I don't think Nebius is going to sell either. They could have sold a while ago. They didn't. There was another interview I watched with Roman over the weekend. I'm starting to really like the management team at Nebius. And I think they really do have like a decade-long vision on what they're going to do. Okay, I think that's it, guys, for the day, or at least until the market closed. Planet Labs up 6%. ASTS, Rocket Lab still moving. ASTS now 10%. Rocket Lab trying to go back to 77. Oracle's up 2. Meta's at 659. Microsoft 485. Then Google at 307. So there you go. Shout out to Uzi. Uzi came over for dinner on Friday with his girlfriend, and they had the best story ever. they had the best story ever. I've heard the story so many times, but this story was even better because, well, let's just say your boy Uzi is blasting my show in the morning. And his girlfriend, who works in tech sales, she's like on a call trying to close a deal. And then her clients are like, what's that bell in the background? That shit was hilarious, bro. Absolutely hilarious. And I was like, bro, Uzi, just wear some headphones. He's like, no, but like, I want to experience the market open. I was like, yeah, but your girl's working. He's like, that's okay. She can experience it too. It was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious. So yeah, now his girl has to hear me every single day. Ring the bell. It was so cool. They were awesome. And yeah, Uzi's been listening for the past year now. And he works in data science and tech. And it was really cool. And I think that's the cool thing about the meetups is you get to meet people in person from the chat. And some of the people that are close by, you get to actually go get a meal with them and get some food. And it's just super cool to connect, especially when you have the same interests, which in this case for all of us is the markets, investing, technology, etc. Pound right there, 193, CoreWeave 86, Broadcom still red on the day, and Bitcoin just below 90. It's not Lil Uzi Vert, but his name is Uzi. Dude, that shit was hilarious too. She's on a call right now. When she told me one of her clients was like, what's that bell in the background? And she had to just be like, don't worry about it. Like, that shit was hilarious. Absolutely freaking hilarious. But it's cool, you know? It's like now the show has become a part of, even though she doesn't like really watch it like he does, it's become a part of her life in the background. Although he could just wear some headphones. Like, he could easily just like avoid all this. But he blasts me throughout the entire house. D-Wave right here, 15%. This is the biggest mover of the day, to be honest. The quantum names, D-Wave in particular, $30.98. That one's moving. Meta lost all of its momentum at 659. S&P still holding on to 0.5%. And then ASTS up 11% as well. President Trump could name new Fed chair by the first week of January, according to CNBC. What are the prediction markets saying? I think there's a shot it could be Waller, but I also think Hassett, he knows what he's going to get. Whereas the other ones, it's still not necessarily for sure. Okay, Hassett's at 57, Warsh is at 54, and Waller's at 11 on these prediction markets. I think it's going to be Besant. If it's Besant, that'd be crazy. I don't know if the bond market would like that, but that's the ones that you have there. All right, cool. That is it, guys. I'll be back on the close. We don't have any earnings today, right? Yeah, we don't have anything crazy. Yeah, nothing. The whole week is done. So we'll be on for the close. We'll see if this one can still play out and the market can hold its momentum. But outside of that, I mean, the main headlines for the day were primarily around that Netflix deal, Rocket Lab making a move, Tesla trying to break 500, and then NVIDIA being able to sell more chips into China. If we can at least hold the momentum we've had right now, grab at 520, Pouncer 193.92, Hood 122.40, Tesla back to 491. I still think that would be a great day. And then you have this acquisition by Google that just happened at the moment. SCOTUS ruling, I think, happens early January. I mean, it was supposed to happen end of November, but it looks like they're taking more time. So that might happen by the end of January. All right, word of the day. What do we got? What do we got? What do we got? Can we think of a new prompt for a word of the day? Give me a word of the day. What's a new prompt? What can we do? What is a new prompt? GDP data, I think we get next week for Q3. So we're not getting that. I don't believe we're getting that this week. Talk about mom's birthday. No, it was just, we had a get. I mean, I talked about it. We played White Elephant. We had a get together. There was like 30, 40 people. Yeah, it was nothing too crazy. We had a cake. Had ugly Christmas sweaters. So it was a fun night. I told you guys, there was like a 3-year-old who was obsessed with YouTube the whole time. And I was just trying to understand, like, why is this kid obsessed with these videos? Just these shorts that he's scrolling through. And I'm like, goodness, dude. It's like me. But I'm not 3 years old, but I'm still obsessed with it too. Give me... Okay, what's the prompt? What's the prompt? Holiday and finance word? Give me a word of the day. Give me a word of the day that has to do with, how about space? Because of the rockets. Aphelion, the point in an object's orbit where it's farthest from the sun. Even at aphelion, when the journey feels most distant from its source, momentum still carry you forward through space. Okay, that one sucks. What's a better one? Okay, give me a word of the day that has to do with rockets. Let's see if that's better. Oh, we know this one. Thrust. The force produced by a rocket engine that propels it forward generated by expelling mass at high velocity according to Newton's third law. Well, we know Rocket Lab has got some thrust into it. So there you go. All right, that is it for us. We'll be back on the close. I'll see if I can get a guest on the close today because I don't think we have anything too crazy. So I'll see if I can get someone. We can just talk stocks. I know Steve and our boy Matt, our boy Mr. White House Quant, did the. What did they do? They did the future show last night, which is really good. So they took over for the futures. But I'll see if I can get someone on later today. Meta 659, Rocket Lab 7648, ASTS 85, S&P 684, and SoFi at 2724. Does anyone remember Amit's very first word of the day? That's a great question. I need to find that. I don't even know when I started doing this thing. Must have been a while ago. An absolute while ago. By the way, speaking of the show, I'm going to link a format. I'm going to make a post on Twitter that'll more formally do this. And I already shared this last time on the manager stream we did. But for those that want to be on the market open, market close next year, I'm putting a link right here in the chat. Sign up. We're looking for more contributors next year. One of the things I want to do next year is have a lot more people from the community join the show, especially if you have something that you feel like you're an expert in. So there's the link right there. We'll do an interview process starting in early January. But if you know about bond yields or semiconductors or I don't know, AI or something that you think you're an expert on and you would like to do a 10-minute segment every week or every other week, then sign up. You know, if you're building a Twitter account or YouTube account, your brand, you just want to get your name out there more, I think it'd be good exposure. And then obviously it's cool to have people from the community like Jose, Matt, Steve, all these people are, you know, just people I know, people I became friends with. And so if anyone is interested, that's the link you can sign up for. Whether market close, market open works, we'll figure out the timing. But we'll try to get some new people onto the show as well. And then I'll put the Substack last night. We have the Zeta and Reddit deep dive coming out tomorrow. I put out a post last night. You can read this one and subscribe. Substack is free to subscribe. There's no paywall. There will never be a paywall. So you can check that out. I might have included the hedgehog joke inside of the Substack. It is what it is. A wise man once said, when you have a good joke, you don't let it die. And so, you know, you might have to read it for the fourth time, but that's okay. Because it's a good joke. The 5X ETFs, I think, are getting canceled, by the way. We talked about that 2 weeks ago, that the SEC is investigating the company that's trying to put them out. So they were supposed to come out December 26th. I think that's going to be heavily delayed now, which might be a good thing. But yeah, it doesn't look like the 5X ETFs are coming down soon. But we will keep an eye on it. It's almost New Year's, and I'm thinking about how a whole year ago we joined the stream LOL Live. Oh yeah, we did. Dude, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do a New Year's stream this year. Do people really want a New Year's stream? Put in the chat. Like, are you actually going to be bored at home and want a New Year's stream? Because I don't know. My parents are going somewhere, but I'm like, I don't know if I'm going with them. I don't think I have to go with them. Like, we could make it like last year. It was fun. We gave the link. Michelle popped on the show. A bunch of people came on live. This time I would do it with Steve, and I don't know if Chris is going to be there. Matt might be there, but I don't know. We have to see. Yeah, Michelle was literally at a party and she still joined. That was hilarious. That was great. The ETFs are scheduled for 116. Okay, so see, it got delayed. Yeah, so we're gonna see. I'm still not sure, dude. I might just not be able to do it, but if people really want it, we'll see. What's January 1st? January 1st, the market's closed, right? Yeah, Thursday. Okay, so Wednesday. Oh, wow. So the market officially opens on January 2nd in the new year. That's crazy, dude. It's absolutely crazy. You're able to get Matt? Yeah, dude. Even though he's a White House official, he's still close friends with me. So it's going to be challenging to get Matt more often, but I think we should be able to. All right, that's it. I'll be back on the close. S&P 685, maybe a little bit of a breakout. That's high of days, 684.91. And hopefully we can hold on to this momentum and keep it going into the end of the day and then hopefully into the end of the year. I don't know why Grab is up today. Again, I have no idea why. My best guess is an institution came in as buying a lot of shares before the GoTo merger. Like, that's my best guess. But there's no like specific headline that would cause it. Google goes green again. SoFi goes green. Rocket Lab just holding on to 76. ASTS up 12% on the day. And then you got the S&P at 684.79. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. We'll see you guys in the close, and we will keep going from there. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.